Chapter 4197, Water Shortage. After the three of them left the King of Hell's residence, Xiaoyu could not help but sneer when she saw Yun Chujia's weak look. Enough, stop pretending. Yun Chujio humped and said, Little Moon, you're really hurting my heart. I'm already like this, yet you still malign me. I don't want to live anymore. Xiaoyu could not be bothered with her and quickened her pace. Chu Feng hesitated for a moment and took 2 steps to catch up, saying dryly, Is the wound on your neck all right? Didn't I? Xiaoyu looked at him speechlessly. All right, didn't you just want to say it wasn't intentional? You've already said it a few hundred times. Can you not be so wishy-washy? Chu Feng's face stiffened and he was so embarrassed that he didn't speak. Yun Chujio, who was at the back, looked at the 2 people in front of her. Her eyes flashed. Oh, there seemed to be an affair. When the 3 of them arrived at the ghost city of Tao Tai, the array masters were carefully disassembling the severely damaged array leaf. Although it was an ancient array formation, the principle of disassembling the array leaf was similar. The array masters worked together and very quickly disassembled the array leaf. Then they began to install the array leaf that Yun Chujio had drawn. Yun Chujio walked around the disassembled array leaf a few times and looked at it carefully from front to back. She felt that there was something wrong with the array leaf, but she couldn't tell what it was at the moment. She originally wanted to bring the array leaf back to study it, but the array masters tried their best to stop her. The reason was very simple. They all wanted to copy the runes on it and study it slowly in the future. Seeing this, Yun Chujio did not insist and left with Chu Feng and Xiaoyu. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed. Although the array disc looked rather sturdy, there was an even more serious problem in front of everyone, which was the lack of water. Food was easy to deal with. After all, a fasting pill could last for a few days, but it could not do without water. The water used in the ghost city was brought by the people of the ghost city of Tao Tai from outside. After so many days of use, there were only a few left. Although those cultivators also brought some water, they didn't bring too much. Therefore, as time passed, the entire ghost city became a water shortage. Island Master Qi and the other people with water spirit roots began to absorb water spirit energy from water-type spirit stones, and then make some water for everyone to drink. However, this could only solve the immediate problem, and wasn't a long-term solution. The ghost city was shrouded in the shadow of death. They did not expect to die of thirst here instead of being killed by the sandstorm of death in the end. It was really frustrating. Hei Shinjo naturally did not lack water. There was plenty of water in the Great Void Mystic Realm, but it was a sin to have a treasure. Of course, this fellow would not foolishly tell everyone that he had water. At most, he would make a basin of water for Elder Duanmu and the others. He would say that he had stored the water in his storage ring. Elder Duanmu and the rest did not have any doubts. After all, this fellow could even store hundreds of sacks of chili flour, so it was normal for him to store some water. On this day, everyone gathered to discuss. Someone said, Bah! Those people outside are really nothing. We have been trapped for so long, and no one has thought of a way to come and save us. Elder Dongfang smiled bitterly. This is not their fault. The sandstorm of death is so brutal. Even if they wanted to, they would be powerless. The person who had spoken earlier also knew this logic. They were just complaining a little. Coming in was akin to throwing away their lives. Who would be stupid enough to come in and throw away their lives? Everyone sighed. If they rushed out, they would die. If they stayed here, they would die. Was there no way to survive? Chapter 4198. Hei Shinjo, who was despised Yun Chujio, rested her chin on her hand as she listened. She was not afraid. At most, she could enter the Great Void Mystic Realm and hide. She could only come out when the sandstorm of death stopped, but Elder Duanmu and the others could not. Was there really no way out? At this moment, Elder Jia of the Flying Flower Island sighed and said, Speaking of which, it's really unfortunate. This sandstorm of death is 3 years ahead of schedule. And it's not over yet. What the heck? Yeah, according to the records, this sandstorm of death would be over in 3 to 5 days. Why did it take so long this time? And it doesn't seem to have stopped. It can't be that it's really going on, right? Elder Dongfang echoed. At this time, an elder of the Chaotian sect said, Could it be because of that bead? Didn't they say that once that bead appeared in the world, people would be plunged into misery? Island Master Qi frowned. He retorted, Nonsense. Previously, when that bead of your Chaotian sect went missing, I didn't hear anything unusual happened. Moreover, the bead of the ghost city of Tao Tai was obtained a long time ago. If something happened, it would have happened a long time ago. The elder of Chaotian sect was rendered speechless by Island Master Qi. He immediately became listless and didn't dare to speak anymore. Yun Chuzhou, on the other hand, had a different opinion of Island Master Qi. Right now, everyone was like a cornered beast. Once this statement was spread out, it would immediately disintegrate everyone's will. Therefore, regardless of whether it was true or not, he would try his best to refute this point. This fellow's expression changed as he thought about it. Chu Feng, who was beside her, saw her unsightly expression and said with concern, "Junior Sister Yun, is your spiritual sense hurting again? If you're not feeling well, you should go back to your room and rest." Yun Chuzhou nodded, got up and went back to her room. She gritted her teeth. The reason why her expression changed so much was because she remembered something from the words of the elder of Chaotian sect. Earlier, after the black bead swallowed the two beads, it was still boasting in her dantian. It took her a lot of effort to suppress it. However, the unusual thing was that after she was forced back to Ghost City by the sandstorm of death, the black bead didn't move at all. Even after she coaxed and scolded it, it didn't move at all. Could it be that the sandstorm of death was brought forward and did not subside for a long time because of the black pearl? Or could it be that the black pearl knew something but was not willing to tell her? So it was playing dead? The more Yun Chuzhou thought about it, the more suspicious she felt. Although the black pearl was usually a freeloader, it was definitely not a kind person. Back then in the forbidden ground of the Palace of Immortals, the black pearl had sucked all the Hundun Qi into it. Could it be that the sandstorm of death was really caused by it? Thinking of this, Yun Chuzhou quickly looked inside her dantian and saw that the black bead was floating in a corner of her dantian. There was no movement at all. Yun Chuzhou shouted sternly, "Glass ball, don't play dead. Does this sandstorm of death have anything to do with you? If you don't give me an explanation today, I will. Hei Xinzhou then realized that she did not seem to have anything to threaten the black bead, so she could only calm down and coax her. Ball, don't you want to find other beads? If we are trapped here forever, I can't help you find other beads, can I? So you'd better let the sandstorm of death subside." It was unknown whether it was a coincidence or Yun Chuzhou's words that worked, but the black bead had a reaction. However, the emotions that Yun Chuzhou sensed in her spiritual sense almost angered her to death. The damn black bead actually despised her. What right did a broken bead have to despise her? Shameless. Chapter 4199. The hint of the black bead. Even though Yun Chuzhou wished that she could get the black bead out and smash it into pieces, she still had a favor to ask of the bead. She could only smile and say, "Little ball, of course I'm not as smart as you. After all, you have an extraordinary background, don't you? You big ball don't care about small people. Either calm down this death sandstorm or show me the way out. After I get out, I'll definitely try my best to find other beads for you. I think the nameless sword sect should have one. I'll make sure to get it for you when we get out. I think the other sects also have one. I'll get it for you when the time comes. I'll make sure you eat it until you're white and fat." Ah, black and fat. Yun Chuzhou immediately felt the disdain in her mind turn into excitement. This fellow thought to herself, "What a small thing. I don't believe I can't win against your stupid pearl." Just as Yun Chuzhou was thinking, the black bead trembled. Yun Chuzhou's dantian was slightly in pain, but she did not quite understand the black bead's intention. Although she could feel the black bead's vague emotions, she could not communicate with it. She could only guess what the black bead meant. After guessing for a long time, she finally understood that the black bead wanted to bring her to a place. So this fellow left the house. Chu Feng and Xiao Yu saw Yun Chuzhou rush out and quickly followed curiously. "Junior Sister Yun, where are you going? Aren't you feeling unwell?" Chu Feng asked with concern. Yun Chuzhou thought to herself that she did not know where she was going, so she said vaguely, "The room is too stuffy and the atmosphere is a little oppressive. It's better to go out for a walk." Chu Feng and Xiao Yu believed her when they heard that. The atmosphere in the inn was indeed very depressing, and they could not stand it. However, after a while they found that Yun Chuzhou would go east, turn back, and not turn back. What was she doing? Could it be that she had gone mad again? Yun Chuzhou was also very miserable. She didn't know where the black bead wanted to take her. so she could only choose a direction. The black bead would tremble if it felt that something was wrong, so she had to turn back and choose a new direction. After a long time they reached the ghost city of Tao Tai. Yun Chujo thought to herself, did the black bead bring her here because it swallowed 2 beads? Was this foodie dreaming of finding a bead that had slipped through the net? Just as she was in a daze, the black bead trembled again and urged her to continue walking. With no other choice, Yun Chujo could only follow the black bead's instructions and continue walking forward. She did not expect to walk all the way to the edge of the deep pit, and it seemed like it wanted her to continue walking. Chu Feng and Xiao Yu thought that Yun Chujo was here to look at the array's core, so they did not have any doubts and jumped to the bottom of the pit. Yun Chujo had no choice but to jump down. As Yun Chujo and the other 2 often came here, the array masters were used to it and no one said anything. Only the elder array master nodded at Yun Chujo and the other 2. Yun Chujo was wondering why the black bead brought her here when her dantian was in pain again. She tried to wander around. Fortunately, the bottom of the pit was only so big. She quickly confirmed that the black pearl wanted her to get close to the dismantled array leaf. After Yun Chujo got close to the array leaf, no matter how Yun Chujo communicated with her spiritual sense, the black pearl did not respond. Yun Chujo could only look at the array leaf. What did the black pearl want to tell her? Chapter 4200. The strange array disc. The array master who had crashed into the wall saw that Yun Chujo was in a daze, so he came over. He said with a slightly mocking tone, "Miss Yun, you used a secret technique to draw a formation leaf previously. I wonder if you can draw 1/10 of it without using a secret technique now?" Yun Chujo glanced at him. "Of course I can't draw it. How can a good-for-nothing like me compare to you?" "Well, I've already asked Elder Duanmu and the others. As long as anyone is willing to spend their spiritual sense to draw the array leaf, I'll tell him the secret technique. I think you're not bad. Come, I'll tell you the secret technique right now." The man's face stiffened. He had seen with his own eyes that Yun Chujo almost went crazy after using the secret technique. He would only learn it if he was stupid. Thus, the man said dryly, "I still have to study other array leaves. Take your time." Yun Chujo pursed her lips and did not say anything. Instead, she carefully looked at the array leaves in front of her. The last time she looked at it, she felt that there was something strange about it. However, after that she forgot about it. What was wrong with it? She recalled that when she first discovered the core of the array, those array masters had said that the array disk was strange. It did not seem to be as simple as a protective array. Therefore, she cleared her throat and asked everyone, "I remember that you once said that this array disk was a little strange. What exactly is wrong with it?" When the array master who had crashed into the wall heard this, he immediately felt that this was a chance to win back a city. He immediately curled his lips and said, "No wonder you can't see it. After all, you are an amateur. Look at the proportion of the array disk's main body and the array leaf. It's obviously not right. Normally, the formation disk's main body should only be 1/10 of the size of the formation leaf, but this formation disk's main body is even bigger than the formation leaf. It's really strange. There's also the formation leaf. Although we don't know the ancient runes on it, we still know the connecting runes. There are 2 types of formations drawn on it. Logically speaking, this should be a defensive formation. Why are there 2 types of formations? It's really puzzling." Yun Chujo looked at the array disk when she heard that. It was just as he said. The main body of the array disk was unusually big, even bigger than the array leaf. It wasn't that she had never seen an ancient formation disk before, but it was the first time she had seen an array disk with such proportions. Her gaze fell on the array leaf again. She finally realized why she felt that this array leaf was a little strange. It was because the upper and lower halves of the runes didn't seem to belong to the same type of runes, although she didn't recognize it. However, her keen perception of the talisman seal still allowed her to sense the strangeness within it. Chu Feng, who was listening at the side, only understood a little. He pointed at the groove that contained the dark spirit stone and said, "The reason why the main body of the array disk is so big, could it be that it wants to put more dark spirit stones?" Yun Chujo glanced at him. "That groove only takes up 1/5 of the main body of the array disk. If you want to put more dark spirit stones, you can completely cultivate it into a groove. Why waste such a large area? As Yoon Chujo said this, her heart was moved. Could there be something fishy in the remaining parts of the main body of the disk array? Could there be a secret hidden inside? She walked to the disk array and took out a rolling pin to knock on it. From the sound, she could tell that there was nothing inside. Could she have guessed wrong? Therefore, she walked to the other side to knock on it. The formation master who knocked on the wall saw Yoon Chujo using the rolling pin to knock on the main body of the formation plate and said unhappily, "Yoon Chujo, what are you doing? If you accidentally break the main body of the formation plate, can you bear it?" Crack. A crack appeared on the main body of the formation plate and spread continuously. Chapter 4201 was trying to scam her? The array master who crashed into the wall was stunned. Hei Shinjo was stunned. The others were also stunned. Everyone watched as the cracks grew bigger and bigger, and the main body of the array board was in a state of cracking, as if it was about to shatter completely. Hei Shinjo felt as if her heart was bickering with the dog. Heaven and earth, she had only knocked lightly a few times. Was there a need to play this trick on her? Was it a scam? Her mind was blank at first, then it quickly started to operate. If the main body of the disk array was destroyed, then the disk array would also be destroyed. If the disk array was destroyed, then the Ghost City's protective array would also be destroyed. If the Ghost City's protective array was destroyed, then the people in the Ghost City would also die. In this way, wouldn't she become a sinner for all eternity? However, what should she do now? How could she stop the cracking speed of the main body of the disk array? In a moment of desperation, she took out the silk net from the ball of yarn and threw it at the main body of the disk array. It was unknown whether the silk net worked or if the cracking happened to reach a certain degree, but the cracking of the disk array finally stopped. Hei Shinjo let out a sigh of relief. No matter what, the main body of the disk array was saved for the time being. After a dead silence, the array master who crashed into the wall said in exasperation, "Yoon Chujo, look at what you've done. If the main body of the disk array is destroyed, we will all die together." Hei Shinjo felt a little guilty, so she did not say anything. She just frowned and looked at the cracks on the main body. The elderly array master said, "This should be a coincidence. Miss Yoon only knocked on the disk array a few times just now. How could the main body of the disk array be cracked?" The other array masters immediately retorted, "Coincidence? Nothing happened for so many days. How could something happen to her when she knocked? What a troublemaker." Chu Fong coldly said from the side, "Do you have a conscience? If junior sister Yoon hadn't found the array core and spent her spiritual sense to draw the array leaf, you would have died by now." Those people looked a little embarrassed. Someone said, "1 yard is 1 yard. She found the array core and drew the array leaf. We are naturally grateful to her. But it's wrong for her to break the main body of the array disk." That's right. If she didn't find the array core or draw the array leaf, we might not have died. But now, once the array disk is broken, we really won't be able to live. Chu Fong and Xiao Yu were almost angered to death by these people's shamelessness. What a bunch of ingrates. At this moment, Ghost Messenger had already run to report the matter to Manager Sunday. Upon hearing that the array disk's main body was cracked, Manager Sun immediately rushed over with his men and even informed Island Master Chi and the others. Everyone arrived very quickly. They looked at the crack on the main body of the formation disk and then looked at the guilty-looking Hei Shinjo. They really wanted to strangle her to death. However, they were all influential figures. When they thought of Yoon Chujia's previous contributions, it did not seem good to turn hostile now. Therefore, many people remained silent. Island Master Chi had always disliked Yoon Chujio, so he naturally did not have any scruples. He snorted coldly and said, "Yoon Chujio, although you have made great contributions in the past, do you know that because of your nonsense we have to follow you to our deaths?" Yoon Chujio had 100 words that could kill Island Master Chi, but this guy was more or less guilty, so it was rare that he did not say anything. Manager Sun felt his head buzzing, but he was the person in charge, so he naturally had to come out to maintain the scene, so he said, "Everyone, the matter has already happened. There's no point in pursuing it now. Why don't we discuss how to prevent the main body of the disc from continuing to crack? Is there any way to reinforce it?" Chapter 4202. The protective array was completely broken. The array masters shook their heads. The array leaves can be strengthened, but it's too difficult to strengthen the main body of the array disk, especially since the main body of the array disk is much larger than normal. Even now, we don't dare to use it lightly, not to mention that there's no way to strengthen it. The main body of the array disk cracked very quickly just now. It might be completely broken if we touch it. That's right. The sticky silk net that Yoon Chujo took out is light and sticky. That's why it can temporarily stop the cracks. If we use other methods, we might really break the main body of the formation plate completely. While everyone was discussing, Yoon Chujo said weakly, "Since the sticky silk net is useful, leave the sticky silk on any of you to me. I'll weave the net." Everyone stared at her when they heard that. Do you think everyone is as perverted as you? Who would collect this thing for no reason? Without the sticky web, there was no other way. So everyone could only gather around the array board and sigh. The array master who crashed into the wall saw that Yoon Chujo was still standing beside the main body of the array board. He was instantly furious. "Yoon Chujo, why are you still standing there? Do you want to knock a few more times? Do you know that because of your nonsense we're all going to die because of you? You jinx." Yoon Chujo originally thought that although she did not do it on purpose, the cracking of the formation disk was somehow related to her, so she had been holding it in and did not say anything. Now that she saw that he was not going to let it go, this fellow could not stand it anymore. "Shut the fuck up. Let's not talk about whether this cracking has anything to do with me. Even if it does, do you have the right to criticize me? Now that you are so capable, where did you go when you were looking for the formation core? Where did you go when you were drawing the formation leaf? What right do you have to criticize me? A coward who is afraid of death. If you continue to complain, I will smash this formation plate into pieces. No one will be able to live anymore." Yoon Chujo took out a rolling pin as she spoke. To be honest, she wanted to scare the formation master who had crashed into the wall. However, she did not expect to step on a small stone and her body staggered. The rolling pin in her hand smashed onto the body of the formation plate. Crack! 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 The main body of the array board started to crack again. Moreover, the speed was much faster than before. The sticky silk net covering it could not stop the main body of the array board from continuing to crack. Hei Shinjo felt as if she was cursing a dog in her heart. What kind of dogshit luck did she have? She was so unlucky. Everyone was shocked by this turn of events. For a moment, they were stunned on the spot and watched as the main body of the array board continued to crack. They had already imagined the ending of them being strangled by the sandstorm of death. Their minds were filled with fear. They didn't even have the time to hate Yoon Chujo. It was over. They were really going to die this time. Yoon Chujo was the fastest to react. She shouted, "Don't just stand there. Hurry up and activate the temporary protective array. Are we going to wait for death here?" Manager Sun finally reacted. He immediately ordered the array masters to activate the temporary protective array. Although the temporary protective array was much weaker than the one in Ghost City, and the area it covered was much smaller, it could still last for 2 days. Fortunately, the core of the temporary protective array was not far from the Ghost City of Tao Tai. This was understandable because the people of the Ghost City of Tao Tai naturally had selfish motives and wanted to protect the Ghost City of Tao Tai. Therefore, the Ghost City of Tao Tai was completely under the protection of the temporary protective array. At this time, the main body of the array disk was completely broken, and the array leaves installed on it fell off one after another. As the array leaves fell off, the protective array of the Ghost City began to break and eventually completely disappeared. Chapter 4203 Stone Tablet. Seeing this, everyone turned to look at the instigator with resentment. Hei Shinjo wanted to explain, but she knew that the more she explained, the worse it would get. She was really unlucky. Elder Duanmu and the other two silently approached Yoon Chujo. The reason was simple. They were afraid that someone would harm Yoon Chujo in the face of public anger. At this moment, another person leaped to the bottom of the pit. It was Tower Master Luochen. He had just heard about this matter and was worried that people would find trouble with Yoon Chujo, so he hurried over. "Little Joe, I have something to ask you. Come with me." Tower Master Luochen said this because he wanted to take Yoon Chujo away from here, so that there wouldn't be any conflict. Moreover, the temporary protective array could only last for 2 days. In the end, if there was really no other way, he would use a secret technique to send Yun Chuzhou away. Yun Chuzhou did not reply. Instead, she looked at the broken array disk with a somewhat dull gaze. Seeing that she did not say anything, Tower Master Luochen took a few steps closer to her. He stretched out his hand to grab her arm, but he did not expect Yun Chuzhou to jump onto the broken array disk's main body. Then, he stored the 6-star dark spirit stones into his storage ring. Everyone, including Elder Duanmu and the others, was so angry that their noses almost went crooked. How greedy were you? At this time you still didn't forget to take advantage of me. Are you planning to save them for the Hell King's palace flower? After Yun Chuzhou kept the dark spirit stones, she also kept the array disk's main pieces and the array leaves into her storage rings. Everyone was speechless. They were convinced that she was so greedy. When everyone was about to take care of He Xinjiu, they were surprised to find that after Yun Chuzhou kept all the things, what was revealed below was not sand but a huge stone slab. To be precise, the stone slab was only 1 circle smaller than the main body of the array board. Judging from the material, it was the same as the stone used for the city wall, which was also a giant black stone. The few array masters who were left exclaimed, no wonder the main body of the array board of the Ghost City Defense Array is much larger than the ordinary one. It is to hide the stone slab below in that case. Other than the other array on the array leaf, it is most likely a concealment array. The purpose of the concealment array is to hide the stone slab. Do you guys feel it? There seems to be an unusual aura underneath this stone tablet. You're right. Could it be that the formation plate from before has the function of a seal as well as a protective formation? Oh my god, could there be something terrifying being imprisoned underneath? Yun Chuzhou stared at the stone tablet in a daze. The emotions that the black bead conveyed to her were a little conflicted. It seemed like it did not want her to lift the stone tablet, but it wanted her to lift the stone tablet. Yun Chuzhou gritted her teeth. At this point she could only take a gamble. She walked forward and wanted to lift the stone tablet, but she was immediately stopped by everyone. Yun Chuzhou, stop. Do you still think that you haven't caused enough trouble? All of this is your fault. That's right. If there is something terrifying inside, once it is opened, the consequences will be unimaginable. That's right. Since there's an ancient formation suppressing this place, it means that the thing below must be extraordinary. If it's released, it'll be a disaster. Yun Chuzhou glanced at them and sneered. If it weren't for the people I care about, do you think that I would be willing to risk my life to get involved in this mess? You're not blind and you're not blind either. Naturally, you know that I didn't do it on purpose. So if anyone tries to smear me again, don't blame me for being impolite. Now I have no other choice. Even if I don't open this stone tablet, the Spirit Stone Protective Array can only last for 2 days. If that's the case, why not take a gamble? Chapter 4204 Disappeared Yun Chuzhi's body emitted a cold killing intent. Those people subconsciously moved aside, allowing Yun Chuzhou to bend over and lift the stone slab. Tower Master Luchen's expression was a little gloomy. He naturally didn't think that he was one of the people that Yun Chuzhou mentioned that she cared about. If she cared about her, she wouldn't not even look at him. He originally thought that this time he could finally let Yun Chuzhou realize his deep feelings for her. In the end, it seemed like he was unnecessary. No matter how unfavorable the situation was for her, she could still control the situation. There was no need for him at all. However, he looked at Yun Chuzhou with even more fervent eyes. The woman he liked was naturally extraordinary. Only such a woman was worthy of him giving everything he had. Just as Tower Master Luochen was thinking, everyone let out a cry of surprise, because everyone watched Yun Chuzhou disappear on the spot. To be precise, when she lifted the stone slab, there seemed to be a huge suction force sucking her in, and then the stone slab was covered once again. Chu Feng and Xiao Yu hurriedly went to lift the stone slab, but they realized that no matter how hard they tried, they were unable to move the stone slab in the slightest. Didn't make sense. Yun Chuzhou didn't seem to have used much strength just now, so why couldn't they lift it? Elder Duanmu and the others quickly came over to help, but they found that they still couldn't move the stone slab. What was going on? I guess there's an array formation on the stone slab, or there's a restriction under it. That's why we can't move it, an array formation master guessed. That's not right. How could Yun Chujio be able to move it? Someone asked in confusion. Everyone stared at each other in confusion. That's right. How could Yun Chujio be able to move the stone slab? Everyone was puzzled. Someone gloated. This is also retribution. She probably lost her life. If it wasn't for her, we would at least be able to hold on for a period of time. Perhaps the sandstorm of death would have stopped. Chu Feng couldn't take it anymore and went up to fight with that person. Do you have a conscience? If it wasn't for Junior Sister Yun, you would have died long ago. How dare you curse Junior Sister Yun? I'll strangle you to death. Xiao Yu also kicked that person a few times. Although she hated that trash Yun Chujio, she didn't know why, but her heart was filled with anxiety. Manager Sun looked at the mess in front of him and even wanted to die. However, he couldn't give up. Even if there was a chance of survival, he had to persevere. Perhaps the sandstorm of death would stop tomorrow. At this time, everyone had already pulled the array master who had been beaten into a pig's head to the side. Chu Feng was also stopped by Elder Gu. Manager Sun sighed and said, Everyone has seen the current situation. The temporary protective array can last for at most 2 days. If we grit our teeth and plug the loophole, we might be able to last for another day or two. There might be a miracle. Therefore, everyone needs to work together to protect the protective array. Don't bother about other things. Hearing this, everyone knew that Manager Sun's words made sense, so they could only nod their heads in agreement. To be honest, both Manager Sun and the others felt that Yun Chujio was very likely dead. After all, the thing that was suppressed by the ancient array formation must be very terrifying, so there was no chance for her to survive. Therefore, everyone left the deep pit and went to inspect the Spirit Stone protective array. Tower Master Luochen hesitated for a moment, but he still left with the people of the 9 pavilions. He subconsciously felt that Yun Chujio would be fine. What he needed to do now was to survive so that he could have a chance to be with her. In the end, only Chu Feng and Xiao Yu stayed behind. Chapter 4205, A Glimmer of Hope. Island Master Qi wanted to say something, but upon thinking that it was very likely that he would not have a good few days left, he swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue and left with a warning glare at Chu Feng. Chu Feng felt goosebumps from being stared at, and for some reason he felt a little guilty. This feeling was as if he had stolen someone's things. Xiao Yu did not notice Island Master Qi's gaze. Her voice trembled as she said, do you think that trash Yun Chujio will really die? Of course Junior Sister Yun will not die. She has a stomach full of evil. Even if she encounters something terrifying, she will be able to turn the situation around. Who knows who will be the scapegoat? Chu Feng said with certainty. Xiao Yu glanced at him, clearly not believing his words. Although that trash had a lot of bad ideas, the things below must be very terrifying. Could she handle it? After a moment of silence, Chu Feng stammered, You don't have to worry. I believe that Junior Sister Yun will be fine, and we won't die. Xiao Yu was not as optimistic as he was. She gave a faint man did not say anything. Although the people trapped in the ghost city wanted time to pass more slowly, 2 days passed very quickly. The temporary protective array began to crack, and everyone desperately used all sorts of things to seal the crack. The roof of the ghost city of Tao Tai had also collapsed by more than half. Fortunately, Chu Feng and the others were temporarily safe. Another 2 days passed, and the temporary protective array was already riddled with holes and was on the verge of collapse. Island Master Qi saw that Xiao Yu and Chu Feng had not made any movements, so he came over in a fluster to look for them. He jumped into the deep pit and grabbed Xiao Yu's arm, shouting, Do you want to wait for death here? Go follow me, at least I can protect you a little. Xiao Yu bit her lips. Although she felt that Yun Chujio might not die, she could no longer stay here since things had come to this point. She looked at Chu Feng with a pale face. We can't hold on until that trash comes back. Let's go. At this moment Elder Gu also rushed over. The temporary protective array was about to be breached. Although he knew there was no way out, he still wanted to give it his all. At least he wanted to fight for a way out for his disciple. Chu Feng had no choice but to get up and leave with them. The four of them had just jumped onto the deep pit when the temporary protective array was completely broken. Wild sand and huge wind blades swept towards the four of them. Island Master Chi and Elder Gu hurriedly set up their spiritual energy shields. The two of them looked at each other. They were afraid that there was really no way out this time. They could only hold on for 15 minutes at most before they died of exhaustion. At this moment Chu Feng exclaimed, Master, look! Those wind blades don't seem to be able to reach the deep pit. Island Master Chi and the other two subconsciously looked down at the deep pit. They saw that those wind blades could only affect the top of the deep pit at most. Other than some sand, there were no wind blades at all. Island Master Chi and Elder Gu looked at each other and revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. They said to Chu Feng and Xiao Yu, "Go down and hide first. We will inform the others." Xiao Yu and Chu Feng didn't try to be brave. Even in Ghost City, everyone's spiritual power would be suppressed. Island Master Chi and Elder Gu's spiritual power reserves were much stronger than theirs, so they would be a burden if they followed them. Soon many people jumped to the bottom of the deep pit. This was also thanks to the fact that the Taotai Ghost City was in the center of the temporary protective array. When Island Master Chi and Elder Gu went out to shout, most people heard them. Everyone escaped from death. Many people hugged each other and wept. They thought they were dead for sure, but they didn't expect that there was a slim chance of survival in the end. Chapter 4206. Trapped in a deep pit. After a while, everyone calmed down a little and began to discuss. I didn't expect that the wind blades wouldn't be able to blow into the deep pit. If I had known earlier, we would have dug our way out. Forget it. The bottom of this ghost city isn't full of sand, so we can dig a hole. But the outside is full of sand and the sand is flowing. How did you dig such a deep hole? That's right. The wind blades in this deep pit can't blow in. Who knows if this is the situation in the desert outside? Manager's son didn't participate in their discussion. Instead, he roughly counted the number of people. Although the time just now was very short, there were still some casualties. Fortunately, most of the casualties were wandering cultivators. Island Master Chi and the others didn't suffer any injuries. Because the space at the bottom of the pit was limited, people were close to each other, and some people could only stand sideways. Manager's son coughed twice and said, "Everyone, our top priority now is to expand the area of this deep pit. This way it will be more convenient for everyone." Everyone felt that what he said made sense, so they immediately worked together to expand the deep pit. Chu Feng mumbled to Xiao Yu, "See? Those people were still blaming Junior Sister Yun. If it wasn't for Junior Sister Yun insisting on digging this deep pit to look for the array disc, they would have died a long time ago." When some people heard Chu Feng's words, their faces revealed some unnaturalness. They wanted to retort that if it wasn't for Yun Chujio, the protective array wouldn't have been broken, but when they remembered that the protective array was also discovered by Yun Chujio, they held back their words. Since they were already dead, what was the point of saying all this? After expanding the deep pit a little, they sat down on the ground. Although their lives weren't in danger for the time being, the water shortage was serious now. Sooner or later, they would die of thirst if they weren't cut to death by the wind blades. Another 3 days passed, and their condition worsened. Firstly, they were short of water. Secondly, although the wind blades couldn't reach the bottom, the sand kept blowing down, making them unable to open their eyes. Fortunately, these people were all cultivators, and their willpower was much stronger than ordinary people. Otherwise, they would have collapsed long ago. Chu Feng called Xiao Yu to a corner and passed her a spirit fruit under the cover of his sleeve. "This was given to me by Junior Sister Yun previously. Eat it." Xiao Yu subconsciously swallowed her saliva. Although their master-disciple water spirit root was a little stronger than the others, it only guaranteed that they would not die of thirst. This spirit fruit was too attractive to her. However, she had always been proud and wouldn't accept it, so she said with a cold face, "I'm not thirsty. You can eat it yourself." Chu Feng forcefully stuffed the spirit fruit into Xiao Yu's hand. "Just take it as compensation for the slash I gave you previously. Don't worry, I still have a few more here." Xiao Yu looked at Chu Feng's cracked and bleeding lips, as well as his clearly guilty gaze, and her heart inexplicably trembled. She wasn't stupid, so she naturally understood that Chu Feng was lying. He only had this one spirit fruit in his hand. Now that a great disaster was approaching, other than Master's usual love for her, those senior and junior brothers who had been circling around her before were all minding their own business, not to mention Tower Master Luochen, who did not even look at her. Only this fool was either helping her block the raging sand, or helping her keep watch, and now he had given her the only spirit fruit. Chu Feng saw that Xiao Yu's eyes were a little red and immediately said somewhat anxiously, "Did the sand scrape into your eyes? Quickly get behind me, I'll help you block it." Xiao Yu kept the spirit fruit into her storage ring and glared at him. "Fool!" Then she ran away. Chu Feng was completely confused as he foolishly scratched his hair. He could scold her as long as she accepted it. Chapter 4207, Be More Elegant. Another 3 days passed. Island Master Qi and the others had run out of water-type spirit stones, and they were completely out of water. Some people began to attack those who had low spiritual power. They had only one purpose, and that was to borrow their blood to survive. Manager Sun led the ghost errand to kill those people, and only then did they temporarily calm down. However, everyone could predict that there would be people who would take the risk very soon. After all, in the face of life, some people did not care about ethics at all and only wanted to live. Xiao Yu split 6 portions of the spirit fruit Chu Feng gave her and secretly stuffed it to Island Master Qi, Elder Duanmu, and the others. When Chu Feng saw this, he looked at Xiao Yu with a burning gaze. He knew that although she was arrogant and domineering, she was still full of sincerity towards the people she cared about. When Island Master Qi saw Chu Feng's gaze, he curled his lips in disdain. However, he was not in the mood to teach Chu Feng a lesson in the current situation, so he pretended not to see anything. The people of Flying Flower Island all had water spirit roots. Although there was very little water spirit energy in the Desert of Death, they could still barely maintain their lives. However, they were powerless against the others. It was a sin to have a treasure. Therefore, the most important thing now was to form an alliance with the Nameless Sword Sect. If the ghost messengers could not control the situation, they could at least work together to protect their own safety. Soon, everyone spontaneously gathered into 5 sections. Island Master Qi and Elder Duanmu were from the same sect. Manager Sun and the ghost messengers were from the same sect. They obviously had a backup plan. Although their lips were dry and cracked, they did not seem to be in danger. Tower Master Luochen seemed to have a backup plan as well, and the people from the 9 pavilions seemed to be fine. The people from the Xuanwu sect and Xuanji sect gathered together. The reason why they were able to survive was because they had managed to rope in a few water spirit root disciples from Ascension Island for mutual benefit. The rest of the people gathered together in 2s and 3s. They were all small and medium-sized sects or unaffiliated cultivators. After another 2 days, those itinerant cultivators began to fight for the meager amount of water. This time Manager Sun did not let Ghost Messenger suppress them. He could foresee that in the end, it was very likely that the remaining people would engage in a fierce battle. Therefore, the most important thing now was to preserve their strength. No one wanted to die. The good and evil of human nature were undoubtedly revealed at this time. There was the friendship of fellow disciples, the relationship between master and disciple, the feelings of a man and a woman, as well as the unscrupulous means to survive. Chu Feng looked at the people fighting with a slightly dull expression. He hoped that Yun Chuzhou could create a miracle and return safely. She might even come back with a way to save everyone. This was because he could foresee that if they really started fighting in the end, no one would survive. Achoo! Achoo! Could it be that senior brother Chu and the others are still alive? Otherwise, why would someone scold me? Logically speaking, it has already been 12 days. The temporary protective array could not hold on for a long time. Could it be that they were saved? Sigh, although I was cheated, if they really died, I still feel a little guilty. Hey! Go Weiba, lie down gently. I'm such an elegant person. Why does it seem like I'm lying on my back like you? The one who spoke was a purple phantom, or more accurately, a mini Yun Chuzhou. She floated in the air and looked at Yun Chuzhou on the ground with a look of disgust. Yun Chuzhou on the ground adjusted her posture when she heard that. Yes, she lied on the ground. Chapter 4208 had become a drifter. Yun Chujio looked at her body that was like a little bastard and was so angry that she was twitching. She suddenly rushed towards her body, but unfortunately, she passed through it directly. It seemed that she was still unable to return to her body. Yun Chujio reluctantly floated back into the air, feeling miserable in her heart. She glared at Yun Chujio, who was on the ground, and cursed, "You vulgar dogtail, is this how I usually sleep?" Yun Chujio, who was on the ground, turned over and rolled her eyes at Yun Chujio, returning to her previous posture of sprawled on the ground. Yun Chujio was so angry that she was twitching, but now she still had to rely on Guai Chao to help her maintain her life, so she could only mumble a few words without saying a word. This fellow's heart was as bitter as Huang Lian's. She had been really unlucky recently. She recalled what had happened before. That day, she bent down to lift up the stone slab. She had thought that the stone slab would be very heavy. After all, it was such a huge black stone. She did not expect that it would be opened without much effort. Then she was sucked in by a huge suction force. This fellow had experienced this countless times. Therefore, the moment she felt that something was wrong, she took out her kitchen knife and the emergency backup bag that she had specially placed in her storage ring. The emergency backup bag contained water hyacinth, several bottles of fasting pills, hemostasis pills, flint, and ropes. By the time she wanted to take out little Wu Yun, she could no longer use her spiritual power. This was not the worst part. The worst part was that after passing through a passage ravaged by a storm, she tragically discovered that her primordial spirit had left her body. Then she was thrown into this damned place. She did not know where this damned place was. The surroundings were filled with black fog, the ground was covered with gravel, and not a single blade of grass grew. Yun Chujio was afraid that her physical body would starve to death, so she had no choice but to let Guai Chao come out to control her body. She did not expect Guai Chao, that glutton, to swallow the fasting pills and hemostatic pills all at once. Yun Chujio almost died from anger. However, fortunately, Guai Chao could secrete juice so it could also maintain its life. Yun Chujio had once directed Guai Chao to leave this place, but she realized that there was an invisible barrier around her. She directed Guai Chao to use a large kitchen knife to cut it for a few days, but there was no effect at all. She could only ask the black bead for help. Unfortunately, she found that she had lost contact with the black bead, and she could not even communicate with the great void mirror. In the first few days, she was very anxious because she was worried about the people in the ghost city. Later on, she had also broken all the rules. Now that she could not even protect herself, she had to think of a way to save herself first. Guai Chao was a little secretly happy. It was rare that he could openly occupy He Xinjia's body and torture her. Yun Chujio looked at her arms swinging back and forth like a leaf of grass and could not help but twitch the corner of her mouth. Although she wanted to curse Go Weiba, but now that she had a favor to ask of it, she could only endure. Yes. Patience was a virtue. Yun Chujio sat cross-legged in the air. She held her chin and said, "Go Weiba, this situation is very similar to the situation where you occupied my body previously. Can't you get me back? You have to know that if I was trapped here, you would not be able to absorb the power of lightning." Guai Chao rolled her eyes. She had asked the same question hundreds of times. This time it really had nothing to do with it, okay? Even if she tried to trick it again, it wouldn't be able to do anything. Seeing this, Yun Chujio sighed. Could this be karma for scolding those drifters? So she had also become a drifter. Chapter 4209, ever-changing. After the Guai Chao took over Yun Chujio's body, although it could move freely, it could not speak and could not use its spiritual power. Of course, there was no spiritual power here at all. Moreover, after a few days of showing off, the Guai Chao felt that Yun Chujio's body was only a so-so. It was not as good as its original body. When it swung its arm, it was not as elegant and beautiful as its leaves. It was extremely ugly. Moreover, being a human was really troublesome. When it reached a point, it would feel sleepy. Even if it did not want to sleep, it had to sleep. It was simply a waste of its life. Guai Chao grumbled as it fell into a deep sleep. If Yun Chujio knew what this fellow was thinking, she would definitely be furious. How would it dare to look down on her? Shameless. Guai Chao had fallen asleep, but He Xinjiu, as a drifter, did not feel sleepy at all. It was also because this fellow had always been ambitious and was good at entertaining itself. If it was an ordinary person, they would have long collapsed. This fellow fell asleep after seeing strange things. First, he tried to burrow into his own body. After failing several times, he began to float around in the limited space. This fellow silently made up his mind. When he returned, he would definitely treat those drifters better. It turned out that being a drifter wasn't easy either. This feeling of not being able to step on solid ground was truly terrible. Thinking of the drifter, this fellow recalled that the drifter could transform into all sorts of shapes and could even transform into a treasured sword. Could she do it? Thus she started to struggle. She didn't even think about it. You are a primordial spirit, while the drifter is filled with killing intent. How could it be the same? She continued to struggle until Guai Chao woke up, but she didn't make any progress. Instead, she made Guai Chao laugh so hard that she shook her arms. Yun Chuzhou snorted coldly. What are you laughing at? Wasn't the primordial spirit just a small dot in the beginning? In the end, it turned into its original form, so it can definitely transform into something else. Guai Chao was stunned by this guy's twisted logic. After thinking about it, it seemed to make sense. However, he had never heard of anyone's primordial spirit being able to change its shape. Not to mention turning into a sword, even changing one's appearance was impossible. Yun Chuzhou no longer paid attention to Guai Chao. She felt that her idea was feasible. To put it bluntly, primordial spirits were interwoven divine senses. This was not much different from the essence of the drifter. Therefore, since the drifter could do it, she should be able to do it too. If she wanted to change her shape, she had to separate her primordial spirit first before reassembling it. Thus, Guai Chao could only watch as He Xinjia's arm was broken, her legs were broken, and her head fell off. Guai Chao was so frightened that it trembled. Was the little girl's primordial spirit about to be destroyed? It did not matter if she died, but wouldn't it be trapped here forever? Just as Guai Chao was feeling uneasy, the arms, legs, and other parts gathered together again. However, the arms and legs were placed in the opposite positions. He Xinjia was rolling in the air happily. It worked. Her idea could be completely realized. Moreover, perhaps it was because her primordial spirit was separated from her body, but she did not feel any pain when separating her primordial spirit. It was simply wonderful. After the guy was happy, he continued to disassemble his primordial spirit. This time he disassembled it even more carefully. Guai Chao could only see many purple light spots. A moment later, Guai Chao looked at the grass floating in the air with a dumbfounded expression. Fuck, wasn't this what it looked like? Go Weiba, how is it? Does it look like it? Yun Chuzhou shook the leaves of the grass and said proudly. Guai Chao looked at herself in the air and was extremely shocked. She actually did it. How was this possible? Chapter 42:10 The grandmother of the Guai Chao Yun Chuzhou was having a great time in midair. At one moment she was transforming into various demonic beasts, at the next moment she was transforming into various tools, and she was even transforming into Di Baiming's appearance. However, this fellow discovered a problem. She could change her appearance, but the person or item she transformed into was purple in color. This was not good, as it would be too easy to be exposed. This fellow thought about it and cursed himself for being stupid. This primordial spirit usually did not come out, so what it transformed into was just for fun. What did it matter what color it was? This fellow struggled for a while, and then he caught a glimpse of Guai Chao's dumbfounded expression. This fellow said proudly, "How is it? I told you I could do it, right? Are you impressed by my intelligence?" Guai Chao finally came back to his senses. Although he was surprised, he looked like he could only do so much. Then he started to swing his arms. He was not used to it. Yun Chuzhou was proud for a while. Suddenly, she thought of something and turned her body into a sharp sword. Then she thrust it at a nearby spot. Guai Chao pursed her lips. It had used a large kitchen knife to cut it a few thousand times, but it was useless. Could she pierce through it with a broken sword that was formed from her spiritual sense? If she could pierce through it, she would be its ancestor. Poochie. Guai Chao. It really pierced through it? Damn it, it had acknowledged its ancestors. Yun Chuzhou was also very confused now, okay? She only had a thought just now and then she tried it. It really could? This guy was afraid that after she stabbed it, the Guai Chao would fall here, so it stopped halfway. Go Weiba, come here. Go Weiba came over and was glad that it couldn't speak. Otherwise, if it had a grandmother, this little girl would laugh at it. Yun Chuzhou ordered Go Weiba to pick up the kitchen knife and cut at the gap that she had just stabbed. Perhaps because there was a breakthrough, it had an effect this time. Guai Chao swung the large kitchen knife and cut a few times. After that, the fog dispersed. Before Yun Chuzhou could see the scene in front of her clearly, she was sucked into her body by a huge suction force. Guai Chao saw that Yun Chuzhia's primordial spirit had entered her body again, so he hurriedly handed over the control of the body to Yun Chuzhou. This fellow now felt that it was quite good to be a blade of grass. Yun Chuzhou looked around and realized that she was actually in a desert. Moreover, it looked very familiar. Wasn't this the Sea of Death? Not far ahead, she could still see the remains of the ghost city. Although many things had been shattered by the wind blades, the city walls made of giant xian stones were very strong, so there were still many people standing there. They came out in a daze? Didn't they say that there was something terrifying sealed underneath? Where was that terrifying thing? This fellow recalled that after she was sucked in, there seemed to be a fork in the middle. Because her primordial spirit had left her body, she was sucked into the fork on the left. Could it be that that terrifying thing was locked in the fork on the right? At this moment, this fellow finally remembered something important. The sandstorm of death had stopped? Just as she was in a daze, she heard a hoarse cheer coming from afar. We're saved! We're saved! The sandstorm of death has really stopped. Quick! Leave this place quickly. I'm dying of thirst. Right, who knows if the sandstorm of death will start again. Hurry up and leave. I swear I'll never come here again. Chapter 42:11. The spirit of the play. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes. The spirit of the play had appeared again. She took a large kitchen knife and cut her coat into a few pieces. A lot of blood was sprinkled on it, and she even rolled on the ground. This guy felt that it was about time, so he leaned on a huge xian stone and closed his eyes to stand up. Soon, the sound of hurried footsteps came from afar. Then someone exclaimed, "There's a corpse in front." Logically speaking, the corpse that was exposed outside should have been killed long ago. Why is there a complete corpse here? Oh my god, isn't that Yun Chuzhou? How did she die here? Wasn't she sucked under the stone slab? Her corpse is intact, which means that she appeared here after the sandstorm of death stopped. What's going on? When Elder Duanmu and the others heard everyone's discussion, they rushed to the front in a hurry. When they saw Yun Chuzhou lying there covered in blood, their hearts instantly sank. Although they also felt that Yun Chuzhou was doomed, there was still a trace of luck in their hearts. Now that they saw her body, the last bit of luck in their hearts was gone. Xiaoyu had imagined the situation of Yun Chuzhou dying at her hands countless times in the past, but now that she saw this scene, her heart felt extremely stifled. It wasn't too bad that everyone didn't notice that He Xinzhou was playing dead. This fellow had been holding his breath and had even taken off the spirit concealing ring in his hand. In addition to everyone's preconceptions, no one suspected that this fellow was playing dead. Tower Master Luochen walked at the back. When he heard everyone's words, he felt the world spin. With a few leaps, he arrived in front of everyone and saw Yun Chuzhou lying there silently. He saw Yun Chuzhia's pale face and her body was covered in blood. He felt a stuffy feeling in his chest and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The people from the 9 pavilions hurriedly supported him. Tower Master, what happened to you? Tower Master Luochen acted as if he didn't hear it and walked towards Yun Chuzhia's corpse. However, after taking a few steps, the dead Yun Chuzhou woke up. She looked at the crowd in a daze and said, "Are we all dead? That's good too. If we all die together, we can be considered to have a companion. You're the one who's dead. We're all alive and well, what's there to die for?" Xiaoyu said snappily, but in her heart, she heaved a sigh of relief. Although this trash was annoying, it was still better to live. Yun Chuzhou looked at everyone in disbelief, and then looked at the shadow beside her. She grinned foolishly and said, "There's a shadow. I'm actually still alive. That's great." Tower Master Luochen stared at Yun Chuzhia's smile. He opened his mouth to say something, but in the end he fainted. The people of the nine-tiered pavilion hurriedly fed and called for medicine. Yun Chujo looked at Tower Master Luochin with a complicated expression, and then turned her gaze back. At this time Island Master Chi's eyes flashed and he asked, Yun Chujo, where have you been these days? Why are you here? Yun Chujo had a blank look on her face. I only remember that I went to flip that stone slab, and then I didn't know anything. Haven't we always been together? Otherwise, why would I be here? Island Master Chi and the others stared at Yun Chujia's expression. They saw that other than confusion and doubt in her eyes, there wasn't the slightest bit of guilt. They thought to themselves, could it be that what she said was true? Did she really not know anything? At this moment, Chu Fong said, perhaps junior sister Yun has lost her memory. She must have done something, which is why the sandstorm of death stopped. Otherwise, why would the sandstorm of death suddenly stop? Chapter 42:12. Senior brother Chu is right. Before anyone could react, Yun Chujo got up and said shamelessly, Yes, senior brother Chu is right. I must have sacrificed myself to do something earth-shattering. Otherwise, would this sandstorm of death have stopped? You don't have to thank me too much. After all, I have always been a very kind person. Now that you mention it, I do have some impression. I seem to have fought with a demon beast for a few thousand rounds. That demon beast had a body full of Huang Mao, and its mouth was filled with wind blades and sand. Everyone's noses were almost crooked from anger. Can you at least be more reserved even if you want to go with the flow? And fight for a few thousand rounds? And a body full of Huang Mao? Can you be any more ridiculous than that? Yun Chujo started to talk about how she had fought with the monster for a few days and nights. Then she changed the topic. My injuries are too serious. I'm doing this for everyone's safety. Do you have any good pills? Everyone suddenly thought of the pills that this guy had extorted to heal their spiritual sense. They did not bother to ask anymore. They quickly said, although the sandstorm of death has stopped, it might come back again. It's better for us to leave this place as soon as possible. That's right. It's more important for us to leave this place. I'm so thirsty. Let's find some water to drink. In the blink of an eye, everyone ran away. On one hand, they were really afraid that the sandstorm of death would come back again because of her. Perhaps it would also be her fault. If they could not afford to offend her, they could hide. Seeing this, Yun Chujo stretched her neck and shouted from behind, Don't leave. Leave the pills before you leave. The more Yun Chujo shouted, the faster the crowd ran. Soon they were gone. Only the people from the nameless sword sect, the Flying Flower Island, and the ghost city of Tao Tai were left. The people from the 9-layered pavilion also used a soft cushion to carry Tower Master Luochin away. They must have gone to find a place to treat him. Elder Duanmu looked speechlessly at He Xinjiu, who had her hands on her hips and wanted elixirs. Didn't she say that she was seriously injured? This lively appearance was even more energetic than them. A glimmer flashed in Manager Sun's eyes. He was about to open his mouth to speak when he heard Yun Chujo exclaim, My head hurts. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to faint. Little Moon, quickly come and help me up. Although Xiaoyu knew that this fellow was most likely putting on an act again, she still walked forward to help her up. Island Master Chi was furious when he saw this. He snorted coldly, Let's leave this place quickly. We'll talk about it after we leave the desert. Manager Sun saw that Yun Chujo had fainted, so he could only swallow his words. Anyway, they would only need 4 hours to leave the Death Sand Sea. It wouldn't be too late to talk about it then. Thus, everyone quickly jumped out of the Death Sand Sea. He Xinjiu saw that Manager Sun had given up on asking, so she slightly heaved a sigh of relief. She whispered to Xiaoyu, That Manager Sun must want to ask me for a 6-star Dark Spirit Stone. Go and tell your master to speak up for me later. After the matter is done, I'll give him 50 yuan to play with. Xiaoyu was speechless, but she still found an opportunity to tell Island Master Qi about the matter. Only then did Island Master Qi remember that when the main body of the disc array broke, Yun Chujo had put away the main body of the disc array, the array leaf, and the remaining 6-star Dark Spirit Stones. No wonder manager's son looked like he wanted to say something but hesitated. He agreed without much hesitation. 56-star dark spirit stones was a huge sum of money. He had been cheated out of hundreds of millions of spirit stones previously, so it was just enough to make up for it. Chapter 42:13 was truly pitiful in the past. Island Master Chi would not have been willing to offend the ghost city of Tao Tai. However, now that the ghost city had been destroyed, it would be very difficult for the ghost city of Tao Tai to become successful again. Therefore, Island Master Chi did not care whether he offended them or not. Although 50 yuan was a little less, that wretched girl was full of evil intentions. It was better not to bargain with her. Otherwise she might get even less. Yun Chuzhou saw that Island Master Chi had agreed. Then she went up to Elder Duanmu and the other two and said, "The 6-star dark spirit stones I got previously, aside from the 50 yuan I gave to the Flying Flower Island, am willing to give the rest to the sect. In a while, I'll ask you three to help me deal with them." Elder Duanmu and the other two naturally agreed without hesitation. It was better to keep the benefits to themselves. Moreover, the formations I was discovered by the little girl. Why should she give it to the ghost city of Tao Tai? When they arrived at the edge of the Death Sand Sea, they found that many people had gathered there. There were also quite a number of people from the Nameless Sword sect. It turned out that after the people from the 6 great sects received the news, they had already gathered for a period of time. However, they didn't find any effective rescue measures, so they could only wait here. After some small talk, Manager's son walked up to Yun Chuzhou and said, "Miss Yun, after the formation disk's main body broke, you took away the formation disk's main body, the formation leaf, and the remaining 6-star dark spirit stones. Shouldn't you return them to our Tao Tai's ghost city?" Yun Chuzhou didn't say anything. Island Master Chi said coldly, "Manager's son, many people lost their lives because of the participation in the Tao Tai ghost city. If it wasn't for Yun Chuzhou, we would have all died in there. Your Tao Tai ghost city has a responsibility that can't be shirked. Now that everyone has escaped safely, your Tao Tai ghost city should thank Yun Chuzhou properly. So those dark spirit stones should be her reward. Moreover, the formations I was originally discovered by Yun Chuzhou. Those dark spirit stones should belong to her." Elder Gu echoed, "That's right. If it wasn't for the little girl who risked her life, we would have died long ago. Therefore, those dark spirit stones should belong to her." Manager's son wasn't a fool. With just one look, he could tell that the Nameless Sword sect and the Flying Flower Island had clearly reached a consensus that those 6-star dark spirit stones wouldn't be coming back. In the ghost city they had the final say. However, now that they were outside, how could they, the ghost city of Tao Tai, be a match for the two sects? They only had to grit their teeth and squeeze out a smile. "Both of you are right. I was muddle-headed. The 6-star dark spirit stones should have been given to Miss Yun." Yun Chuzhou shamelessly said something that she felt guilty about, but she did not have the slightest intention of taking out the dark spirit stones. Manager's son was so angry that he almost died. After the matter was settled, everyone took their leave and prepared to leave on their flying spirit tools. Before they left, Yun Chuzhou lowered her voice and said to Manager's son while everyone was not paying attention, "Manager's son, I'm sorry. I had no choice. The dark spirit stones that I took were divided by Elder Duanmu and Island Master Chi, so they left me 3 pieces. Here, let's get to know each other. I'll give you one as a return of your favor. I had no choice. Please forgive me." Yun Chuzhou said and passed a dark spirit stone to Manager Sunday. Then she hopped away. Manager's son had mixed feelings. He didn't doubt Yun Chuzhou's words at all. If it weren't for the benefits, Island Master Chi, Elder Duanmu, and the others wouldn't have stood up for that little girl, so that little girl was the scapegoat. How pitiful. Chapter 42:14. The awkward Xiaoyu Yun Chuzhou caught a glimpse of Manager Sun's complicated expression and was delighted in her heart. This move was simply a stroke of genius. Through Manager Sun's mouth, if she pretended to offer it to the sect, the 6-star dark spirit stones in her hand could be saved for De Hua to eat. This time it wasn't too bad. She had earned a pile of 6-star dark spirit stones, which was probably enough for De Hua to eat for a long time. However, It was a pity that she didn't put away the giant dark spirit stones that were used to build the city wall. She had wanted to keep them, but when she thought about how unlucky she had been recently, it would be terrible if she were to move the city wall and draw out the sandstorm of death. Therefore, she could only give up. Yun Chujo passed 50 dark spirit stones to Island Master Chi in front of Elder Duanmu and the others. Then she said, "Island Master Chi, I was blind in the past. You are truly a role model who is responsible and protective of your juniors. I will definitely correct my mistakes in the future. You are such an open-minded person. You won't hold a grudge against a little girl like me, right?" Island Master Chi looked at the 56-star dark spirit stones in his storage ring. He was in an extremely good mood. It was rare for him to smile at Yun Chujo. Let bygones be bygones. Take care of yourself in the future. The corners of Elder Duanmu and the other two's eyes twitched, but they still exchanged a few pleasantries with Island Master Chi and prepared to leave. The voice transmission talisman in Chu Feng's hand was almost drenched in sweat. He hesitated for a long time, but he did not muster up the courage to give the voice transmission talisman to Xiaoyu. This separation was too difficult to meet. If he did not give the voice transmission talisman, wouldn't he lose contact with her in the future? However, it was as if his leg had been filled with lead, and he could not move no matter what he said. Yun Chujo saw that Chu Feng was not quite right, so she came over and asked, "Senior brother Chu, what's wrong?" Chu Feng's expression was a little unnatural as he said, "No, nothing. Junior sister Yun, we are leaving. Don't you have anything to say to her?" "Her? Who are you talking about?" Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and asked despite knowing the answer. Chu Feng's face instantly turned red, but he just could not say it out loud. When he saw that the flying spirit tool on the Flying Flower Island was about to take off, he was so anxious that he wanted to bang his head against the wall. Yun Chujo could not help but laugh. She pulled at Xiaoyu's neck and shouted, "Xiaoyu, come here. I have something good for you." Xiaoyu had been dawdling and did not get on the flying spirit tool. She had some faint anticipation in her heart, but when she saw that Chu Feng still did not make any movements, she could not help but feel a little angry. Now that she heard Yun Chujo shout, although she immediately understood that Chu Feng had something to look for her for, she still impatiently said, "What good things can you have?" Even so, she still took a few steps forward. Yun Chujo said mischievously, "I don't have any good things to give you, but senior brother Chu has. Isn't that right, senior brother Chu?" Chu Feng's face turned even redder as he extended his trembling right hand in front of Xiaoyu. "Keep this. In the future, if you look for junior sister Yun in the future, I will help you pass the message." Yun Chujo almost burst out laughing. This senior brother Chu was usually a smart person, so why did he become so stupid now? If Xiaoyu wanted to contact her, she could just ask for her voice transmission talisman. Why did she need you to send the message? Xiaoyu's expression stiffened. When she saw the voice transmission talisman in Chu Feng's hand that was already drenched in sweat, her heart inexplicably trembled slightly. She reached out to take the voice transmission talisman in his hand and snorted coldly, "All right, if I look for this trash in the future, you have to help me bring the letter immediately. Otherwise, the next time I see you..." After saying that, Xiaoyu walked away with her head held high and her chest puffed out. It was just that. She took a detour along the way. Chapter 42:15 was a member of the sect. Island Master Chi saw everything from afar. He glared fiercely at Xiaoyu and then at Chu Feng with a warning look. Even if he could not marry Tower Master Luochen, he had other plans for Xiaoyu's marriage. Although he intended to pass the position of Island Master to Xiaoyu in the future, she was a woman who could not be convinced by the masses, so he settled for the second best and decided to choose Xiaoyu's husband as the Island Master. In this way, Xiaoyu could only marry a disciple of the Flying Flower Island, that Chu Feng, to the side. Chu Feng was startled by Island Master Chi's cold gaze, but he still stared at Xiaoyu's back in a daze. If they had not been trapped in the deep pit for so many days, perhaps the feelings between them would not have developed so strongly. Perhaps he would have forgotten about this matter when he returned to the Nameless Sword sect. However, the feelings that had gone through the test of death were exceptionally mellow. When he thought of separating like this, his heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. Yun Chujio looked speechlessly at the dazed and foolish Chu Feng. She thought to herself that if someone had told her that Chu Feng and Xiao Yu would become a couple before coming here, she would definitely have rolled on the ground with a smile, but it was just so wonderful. The two of them fell in love by chance. However, judging from Island Master Chi's attitude, the two of them would probably have a long way to go. Elder Gu looked at his foolish disciple with a speechless expression, but he did not say anything. He called Yun Chujio and Chu Feng to board the flying spirit tool. Yun Chujio found an opportunity to secretly give Elder Duanmu and the other two 10 six-star dark spirit stones each. The three of them were shrewd people, so they naturally understood that this was hush money. It was likely that the dark spirit stones that this little girl offered to the sect would be greatly discounted. However, they were not prepared to say anything. This was not a sect mission to begin with. Even if Yun Chujio did not offer a single piece to the sect, no one would be able to say anything. On this day, everyone finally returned to the Nameless Sword sect. Master Ouyang had received the news in advance and was already waiting in the meeting hall. Thus, Elder Duanmu and the other two went straight to the meeting hall and briefly explained the matter. Master Ouyang asked for some more details. He Xinzhou said with a selfless look, Master Ouyang, I've received a total of 126 star dark spirit stones and given 50 to the Flying Flower Island. I have 70 left, and am willing to offer them all to the sect. As soon as Yun Chujio said this, Master Ouyang almost stood up. Was it raining red? This iron rooster was actually going to pluck feathers. The others also had looks of disbelief on their faces. Who didn't know that this little girl was a money grubber? Now, she was actually willing to offer so many 6-star dark spirit stones to the sect? Yun Chujio said with a sigh this time, I truly felt the sense of belonging to the sect. If it wasn't for my identity as a disciple of the Nameless Sword sect, and if it wasn't for Elder Duanmu and the others protecting me with their lives, I would have died long ago. Therefore, it's my honor to be able to do my part for the sect. I'm willing to do so. Master Ouyang nodded repeatedly. That's right, that's right. If the disciples of the sect have the same awareness as you, why would they worry about the prosperity of our Nameless Sword sect? However, these 6-star dark spirit stones were also exchanged with your life, so it's not good for the sect to accept them all. How about this, you keep 20 and give the remaining 50 to the sect. Moreover, the sect will reward you with 200,000 sect contribution points. Yun Chujio immediately expressed her determination with tears of gratitude. She was either a member of the Nameless Sword sect in life or a ghost of the Nameless Sword sect in death. Elder Duanmu and the other two had no expression on their faces, but their mouths twitched in their hearts. At that time, there were at least 500 to 600 6-star dark spirit stones in the groove, and this guy had said more than half of them. Chapter 42:16 Did Little Moon come looking for me? Master Ouyang praised Yun Chujio again before letting her and Chu Feng leave first, leaving Elder Duanmu and the other two to discuss other matters. After leaving the meeting hall, Yun Chujio said sneakily, Senior Brother Chu, did Little Moon come looking for me? Chu Feng's face turned red. No. Senior Brother Chu, we have arrived at the sect safely. Shouldn't you report to Little Moon that you are safe? Yun Chujio thought to herself, without her help, it would be very difficult for this dumb goose to marry Little Moon. Chu Feng's eyes immediately lit up when he heard this. He was worried that he wouldn't have an excuse to send a message to Xiao Yu, so he immediately said eagerly, Junior Sister Yun, about that, I'll go back and send her a message right now. You go and do your work. Before Yun Chujio could react, Chu Feng had already disappeared without a trace. He was probably returning to the courtyard to figure out how to send a message to Xiao Yu. Yun Chujio pursed her lips. He really forgets loyalty at the sight of lust. At the mention of lust, only then did this fellow remember that it had been a long time since he had seen a gigolo. When he recalled what Tower Master Luochen had said previously, his heart became somewhat heavy. The gigolo had never told her what the three of them were doing. However, Xue Wujian and Feng had said that they had been chased to Towering Sky Continent, which meant that they were in a very dangerous situation. Yun Chujio pondered as she walked and soon arrived at her own courtyard. After taking a shower, She recalled that she had said that she would treat the drifters better, so she immediately released those drifters. These drifters were really suffocating. When they were released out of the blue, they were extremely smug. If they weren't afraid of being discovered, they would probably fly into the sky. Buttface and the others were also released by Yun Chujio, and they were all having fun in the courtyard. Yun Chujio recalled the primordial spirit transformation skill that she had just learned and wanted to give it a try. Unfortunately, this fellow was in so much pain before he could remove his primordial spirit's arm, so she had no choice but to give up on this plan. It seemed that only after the primordial spirit left the body would the transformation not feel any pain. Then this skill was too useless. Buttface, who was at the side, said, "Little fairy, why don't you think about it? Even if it doesn't hurt, what's the use of changing your primordial spirit for no reason? Is it just for fun?" Yun Chujio thought about it and agreed. What use was there? Therefore, this fellow threw the newly activated skill to the back of his mind. Instead, he took out a piece of 1,000-year black iron. This thing was a good thing. She had to think of a way to make it into a puppet. Although she had a crafting furnace in her storage ring, she could still refine ordinary refined iron. However, she was a little lacking when it came to refining 1,000-year black iron. Therefore, she ran over to Elder Duanmu the next day. Apart from the crafting furnace in the outer court, Elder Duanmu also had a crafting furnace in the backyard that was specially used to refine high-quality swords. Yun Chujio mysteriously took out a piece of 1,000-year black iron and said, "Elder Duanmu, you have divided this 1,000-year black iron into two. Half for you and half for Elder Dongfang." Elder Duanmu already knew that the 3 pieces of 1,000-year-old black iron had been auctioned off by Yun Chujio, but he didn't expect her to be so generous as to give him and Elder Dongfang a piece. This little girl really knew how to cause trouble. While Elder Duanmu was in a daze, Yun Chujio said, "Elder Duanmu, I want to borrow your weapon furnace to use. I want to refine something good." Elder Duanmu thought that Yun Chujio wanted to refine a sword, so he shook his head and said, "You can't infuse sword intent into it yet. Don't waste this good material." Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and said, "I don't want to refine a sword. I want to refine something good." Chapter 42:17 Repairing the Big Black Pot. "What do you want to refine?" Elder Duanmu asked suspiciously. This little girl wasn't a weaponsmith, and she didn't know how to infuse sword intent. What good things could she refine? Yun Chujio said mysteriously, "Just watch and see. I promise to broaden your horizons." Elder Duanmu snorted and didn't say anything. He wanted to see what this little girl was up to. Yun Chujio began to get busy, and she even shamelessly ordered Elder Duanmu to help. Elder Duanmu wanted to refuse, but he wanted to take advantage of the situation, so he could only help her out. However, he thought about it. The 10,000-year-old black iron was still half of Elder Dongfang's. Why was he the only one being ordered around by the little girl? Therefore, he sent a message and called Elder Dongfang over. With the help of these 2 sword forging masters, Hei Xinjia's puppet refinement went very smoothly. However, when Elder Duanmu and Elder Dongfang realized that this fellow was actually refining puppets, they almost died from anger. A material like the 1,000-year-old black iron was actually refined into a puppet that was as useless as chicken ribs. This was simply a reckless waste of God's gift. However, Hei Xinjiu had already melted the entire piece of black iron. It was too late for them to stop her now. They could only help her refine the 10,000-year-old black iron into 3 puppets. After refining it for 2 days, the 3 puppets were finally completed. There were still some materials left, so Hei Xinjiu decided to repair the big black pot. Elder Duanmu and Elder Dongfang were so angry that their noses were almost crooked. That broken pot didn't look like a spirit tool no matter how they looked at it. It was such a waste to use the 1,000-year-old black iron to repair it. Although they were angry, the 2 sword forging masters still helped Hei Xinjiu repair the big black wok. The 2 of them smiled bitterly. If this news were to spread, the 2 of them would actually work together to repair a big black wok used for cooking. It was simply a joke. However, Hei Xinjiu was very satisfied. Whether it was the 3 awe-inspiring puppets or the big black wok, they looked very high-end and luxurious. As expected of the hands of the 2 sword forging masters, Hei Shinjo put the puppets and the big black wok into her storage ring. Then she feigned gratitude to Elder Duanmu and Elder Dongfang before she hopped off. Elder Duanmu and Elder Dongfang smiled bitterly, which was a rare tacit understanding. Then, they divided the spoils. What a joke. The 1,000-year-old black iron that Yun Chujio gave them had not been divided yet. They had to be calculative and not let the other party take advantage of them. Yun Chujio hopped back to the courtyard in satisfaction. She immediately placed a puppet plate in the grooves of the 3 puppets. This fellow was happily waiting for the 3 puppets to pay a visit to her. But there was no movement for a long time. What was going on? She had used an ordinary refined iron shell to pay her a courtesy before. But why did the 1,000-year-old dark steel shell stop moving after it was replaced? Just as Yun Chujio was puzzled, she saw the drifters jumping around gloating. This guy thought, could it be them? The drifters were very proud. Did they think they were stupid? Now only they could command the 3 puppet discs. She couldn't shake them off at all. Yun Chujio used her spiritual sense to sense the 3 puppet discs. She could still sense them, but even after she gave the order, there was no reaction. Yun Chujio was so angry that she kept snorting. Fortunately, she didn't have any deep feelings for the spiritual sense on the 3 puppet discs, because they hadn't developed their own consciousness yet. Otherwise, Hei Shinjo would have killed those drifters. Thinking of this, Yun Chujio thought of the puppets number 1, number 2, and number 3 that had self-detonated to save her. She gritted her teeth. Although she knew that Tower Master Luochen, that crazy person, might really want to treat her well. However, she couldn't afford to be nice to a pervert like him. Chapter 42:18 Thunder Desolation. In the following period of time, other than cultivating, Hei Shinjo practiced sword techniques. This fellow finally realized a problem, and that was that she had not broken through for a long time. Of course, to others her long time was short and pitiful. However, this fellow's starting point was too low, and he was only at the 9th level of spiritual connection. He really could not bring himself to do so. This fellow rubbed his chin and pondered. Last time that big fool Wu Yun was angered by him and ran away. He didn't come to strike her again, and there wasn't a single cloud from the other little cuties that came. If this went on for a long time, it would probably lead to a thunderstorm. Thus, this fellow began to have a sense of crisis. If that old bastard Tiandao sincerely didn't send the dark clouds to strike her, she would only rely on the pitiful amount of lightning that little Wu Yun absorbed to advance. She had to think of something. She wanted to make a lightning attracting tool, but the bitter thing was that the cultivation world was not like the secular world. If it rained for no reason, there would be lightning. There was pitifully little lightning here, so even if she had a lightning attracting tool, it would be useless. She let the dumb cubs out and asked, "If you are not divine beasts, then you are fierce beasts. At the very least, you are strange beasts. With my heavenly lightning spirit root, will I really not be able to cultivate without being struck by lightning?" The kitten blinked its eyes. Actually, this fellow was a white tiger. Its spirit still held the upper hand, so its body was always under its control. This fellow hoped that Yun Chujio would become more and more powerful, and help it find the soul transformation technique. Otherwise, it would sooner or later be devoured by the original kitten. Therefore, it said eagerly, "Little fairy, it's not that there's no way. It's just that it's a little troublesome." Yun Chujio's eyes immediately lit up. "Quick, tell me, what's the way? Some places are filled with lightning all year round. As long as you find a place like that, won't you be able to cultivate?" The kitten said eagerly. "Scram." Yun Chujio kicked the kitten to the side. It was as if she didn't say anything. Not to mention that places like that were pathetically few to begin with. Moreover, it was only a one-time deal. With her perverted body, she had to absorb all the lightning energy in that place after going there once. Just like the lightning tribulation valley where she had found the little flame. After going there once, not a single bolt of lightning remained. Buttface had a gloating look on his face. He deserved it. He even wanted to snatch his position as his pet in front of the little fairy. He overestimated himself. Was it that easy to shake his position? Dog 2 rolled its eyes and said, "Little fairy, I do have an idea, but it might not work. I'll tell you for your reference." Dog 2 felt that it was getting better at talking. It seemed that its words were watertight. Even if the little fairy was not satisfied, she would not kick it. Yun Chujo glanced at it and said, "Tell me. Little fairy, do something outrageous. For example, kill more people and make it bleed like a river. Tiandao will definitely kill you this way. By then, little fairy, you won't be short of lightning. I guarantee that the lightning will chase after you," Buttface said smugly. "Get lost too." Yun Chujo kicked the guy away. He wasn't asking her to cultivate, he was asking her to die. Not only was Buttface not angry after being kicked, he even wagged his tail flatteringly. "Little fairy, this kick of yours is too comfortable. Why don't you kick me again?" Yun Chujo was so angry that she gritted her teeth and ignored it. She looked at the other dumb cuties and asked, "Do you have any good ideas?" Xiao Mogu, who had always had a low sense of presence, said weakly, "Master, I think there is a way that might work." Chapter 42:19. Xiao Mogu's method, as Hei Shinjo had already been defeated by Cat and Dog 2. She didn't have much hope. She said indifferently, "What method?" Xiao Mogu said slowly, "Master, you may have heard of a saying in the secular world, that after thunder strikes, many mushrooms will emerge from the ground." Yun Chujo nodded. She had heard of it before, but this saying had not been confirmed. Perhaps it was just a coincidence. Xiao Mogu continued, "Whether the mushrooms in the secular world are related to lightning or not is another matter. However, the higher the rank of the mushrooms, the more they like to absorb the power of lightning. However, they do not dare to directly absorb the lightning that strikes, but instead, they absorb the power of lightning stored underground." Yun Chujo was a little puzzled. The power of lightning stored underground? That's right. Every time the heavenly lightning strikes down, it doesn't completely disappear. A portion of it will enter the ground. This is also the reason why lightning elements are occasionally found in the surrounding spiritual chi. However, there are only a small amount of residual power of lightning in ordinary places, so it can basically be ignored. However, in some dense forests, there are some special places that store more power of lightning, and in those places there are many high-level mushrooms, Xiao Mogu explained. Seeing that Xiao Mogu had stolen the limelight from him, Dog 2 immediately glared at him. "Since you know about this, why didn't you tell the little fairy earlier, you white-eyed mushroom? Tell me, what are you thinking?" Xiao Mogu said aggrievedly, "There were very few high-level mushrooms in those low-level continents before, so it's useless to tell you. Besides, I only awakened a part of the inheritance not long ago. Master, you don't blame me, right?" Yun Chujo kicked Buttface away, then she said to Xiao Mogu with a smile, "You don't have to pay attention to that idiot. Since you can hook up with mushrooms, can you help me find the habitat of those mushrooms?" Xiao Mogu saw that Buttface was taken care of by Yun Chujo. She immediately said happily, "There should be no problem within dozens of miles. It won't work if it's too far. However, as long as there are forests, you can basically find the habitat of mushrooms." Yun Chujo nodded her head in satisfaction. There were many forests in the northern continent. If she followed Xiao Mogu's words, she wouldn't have to worry too much in the future. It was simply wonderful. However, this fellow quickly frowned. On one hand, he was afraid of being chased by the Divine Devil Hall after he went out. Moreover, that crazy Lan Luochen also didn't stop. On the other hand, unless the sect disciples went out on a mission, or like the last time when an elder brought them out, they couldn't leave the sect at will. Even so, Yun Chujo still decided to think of a way to get out. If she was afraid, her spiritual power would probably be stuck at the 9th level of spiritual link forever. Before Yun Chujo could go to the bounty hall to find a suitable mission, Chu Fong came to find her excitedly. "Junior sister Yun, in 2 days, I and a few of my good disciples will go to the Bewilderment Shadow Forest to carry out a mission. If you have something to say, just send me a sound transmission talisman." Yun Chujo saw that Chu Fang's expression could not hide his excitement and asked curiously, "Senior brother Chu, it's just a mission. Do you have to be so excited?" Chu Fang's expression was a little unnatural as he said dryly, "Yes, yes." I'm just going out for a walk, that's why I'm a little happy. Yun Chujo curled her lips. Who was she lying to? Senior brother Chu, if you don't tell me the truth, I won't care about what happens between you and Little Moon in the future. Logo. Chapter 42:20 Iron-Armored Blood Lizard. Hearing this, Chu Fong could only stutter. It's nothing. She once told me that there's a kind of Tsongling flower in the Bewilderment Shadow Forest that's very beautiful. It just so happens that we've accepted the mission to hunt the Iron-Armored Blood Lizard in the Bewilderment Shadow Forest, so I can pick some at the same time. Next time we meet, I can give them to her. Yun Chujo felt sour in her heart. Chu Fong was quite good at flirting with girls. The gigolo had never given her flowers before. Previously, he had given her some delicious food and even charged her spirit stones. They were both boyfriends, but why was there such a big gap between them? However, they were going to the Bewilderment Shadow Forest. This was a good opportunity. Not only was the Bewilderment Shadow Forest very big, but they also heard that there were many high-level spirit mushrooms in it. It just so happened that they could go with them. Thus, this fellow said with a smile, Senior brother Chu, I didn't expect you to know a girl's mind. I believe that Little Moon will be very happy when she receives the flowers from you in the future. Chu Fong immediately laughed foolishly, wishing that he could immediately send the flowers to the beauty. Senior brother Chu, I have nothing to do. Let me join your team. I'll go out with you for a stroll. Chu Fong hesitated for a moment. If the other inner disciples said this, he would definitely refuse them. After all, the difference in spiritual power between an inner disciple and a true disciple was very obvious. However, the person in front of him was full of bad ideas. If she went with him, not only would she not be a burden, she might even be a help. Therefore, he said, all right, then follow me to the Bounty Hall of the Upper House to go through the procedures. Although you are an inner disciple and cannot accept the mission of the Bounty Hall of the Upper House, with us as guarantors, it's still not a problem. Yun Chujo immediately followed Chu Fong to the Bounty Hall of the Upper House to go through the procedures, and then agreed to set off 2 days later. 2 days later, Yun Chujo arrived at the rendezvous point. This time there were a total of 5 people. Yun Chujo had seen the other 3 people on the Flying Flower Island, and they were all new successive disciples, so there was no estrangement between them. The journey was very smooth. 2 days later, the 5 people arrived at the outskirts of the Bewilderment Shadow Forest. Junior sister Yun, after entering, you must follow us closely. This Bewilderment Shadow Forest is named because it's very easy to get lost inside. Many cultivators lose their lives here because they get lost, Chu Fong urged. Yun Chujo nodded obediently. Although she couldn't wait to find a place with the power of lightning, she still wanted to help Chu Fong and the others complete the mission first. The iron-armored blood lizards that Chu Fong and the others wanted to kill were level 69 demonic beasts. Their bodies were covered with a layer of blood-red armor, which was a very good supplementary material for forging swords. The iron-armored blood lizards were equivalent to a cultivator's 3rd to 4th layer of nirvana. Chu Fong and the others were all at the 2nd layer of nirvana. Although the difficulty wasn't small, as long as the 4 of them cooperated properly, there was still a good chance of successfully killing them. The reason why they accepted this difficult mission was to gain some experience. If the difficulty of the mission was too low, it would be meaningless whether they accepted it or not. Moreover, even if they could not beat it, they still had the confidence to escape, and their lives would not be in danger. After searching for a while, Chu Fong pointed to the distance and said in a low voice, "Do you see that place? There is a large patch of bell grass there, which means that the iron-armored blood lizard's nest is nearby. However, the bell grass is very annoying. As long as someone comes close, it will make a sound. I'm afraid that we won't be able to detect the iron-armored blood lizards in the nest in advance." Chapter 42:21. Not saving a dying man. Hearing this, Yun Chujo thought to herself, this iron-armored blood lizard sure knows how to pick a place. With the bell grass, it would not be afraid of being ambushed by humans or demon beasts. She asked curiously, "Senior brother Chu, Since this bellgrass is so useful, why aren't the other demon beasts imitating the iron-armored blood lizard in their nest of sword moves near the bellgrass? Chu Feng smiled and said, although the bellgrass can be used as a warning, it has a major weakness. That is, the leaves of the bellgrass are sharper than saw teeth. Only the iron-armored blood lizard with thick skin is not afraid of being cut, but the other demon beasts are unable to avoid it. Yun Chuzhou finally understood. So that was the reason. At this time a disciple said, since we can't investigate, I'll lure one over. It's not a problem for the 5 of us to deal with one. Chu Feng and the others had no other choice but to agree with the disciple who spoke earlier to lure the beasts. After the disciple left, Yun Chuzhou soon heard the bellgrass make a ding-dong sound, followed by several angry roars. Then, the disciple who had gone to lure the beasts ran back in panic. Shit, this is bad. I don't know why, but those iron armor blood lizards have all moved out. There are more than a dozen of them. Run. Hearing that, everyone ran as fast as they could. While running they said that's not right. The iron-armored blood lizards are arrogant. Usually they act alone when they meet cultivators or demonic beasts that are lower in level than them. Why did they all come out this time? Who knows? It's really unlucky. I guess it's hungry and can't wait anymore. Let's not talk about this. It's more important to run for its life. If it's caught, it definitely won't survive. Hearing their discussion, Yun Chuzhou secretly turned her head and saw more than 10 blood-red demon beasts of various sizes chasing closely behind. Moreover, their skin was rough and their flesh was thick. They were not afraid of some vines at all. Their speed was faster than Yun Chuzhou's group, and the distance between them was getting smaller and smaller. At this moment, one of the disciples said in surprise, look, the 5 people in front are wearing the clothes of our sect, and they are also true disciples. We are saved. Chu Feng and the others were overjoyed when they heard that. They ran toward the 5 people, and when they got closer, they found that it was Zhuang Hong and a few of his followers. Yun Chuzhou's heart instantly sank. It was already good enough that these people did not add insult to injury. How could they help? Sure enough, Zhuang Hong glanced at the group of lizards that were chasing after them, and then sneered, we still have things to do. You guys can count on yourselves. If you want to blame someone, blame it on a hateful bitch in your group. Let's go. As Zhuang Hong said this, he directly left with his people. Zhuang Hong and the others were still some distance away from Yun Chuzhou and the others, so they could easily escape and quickly disappear without a trace. Chu Feng cursed angrily. A person like him is not worthy of being the sect leader's true disciple. No. He is not even worthy of being a disciple of the nameless sword sect. The other 3 were also livid with anger. No matter what kind of conflict they had, they could not just stand by and watch. This Zhuang Hong was really cold-blooded. The 3 of them more or less blamed Chu Feng and Yun Chuzhou in their hearts. If Chu Feng had not insisted on bringing Yun Chuzhou, Zhuang Hong would not have left her in the lurch. However, there was no point in talking about it now. Escaping was more important. The iron-armored blood lizards were not only tough but also good at climbing trees. Otherwise, they could have temporarily climbed up the trees to hide. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes and said, I will distract the iron-armored blood lizards. Wait for me at the place where you were resting. Chapter 42-22 Giant mushrooms. Before Chu Feng and the others could react, they saw Yun Chuzhou running back towards the iron-armored blood lizards. Chu Feng wanted to chase after her, but when he thought of Yun Chuzhou's past actions, he felt that she cherished her life the most, and would not do anything that would sacrifice herself for others. Since she had done so, there should be a way to save her life. Since that was the case, it would be a burden if they followed her. Thus he said to the other 3, let's go. Well, do as junior sister Yun said. Well, wait for her at the resting place. The 3 of them wished for nothing more. Although they would not leave her to die, who would want to live? Besides, this was Yun Chuzhou's idea. It was not forced by them, so they could not be blamed. Thus, the 3 of them followed Chu Feng and quickly disappeared. When Yun Chuzhou was about to reach the iron-armored blood lizards, she suddenly turned around and ran in another direction. While running, she was still mumbling, a bunch of ugly monsters. It's not your fault that you're ugly, but it's your fault for forming a group to scare people. What are you shouting for? If you have the ability, come and chase me. You trash can't catch me at all. The iron-armored blood lizards were infuriated by the scolding. They immediately roared and chased after Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio jumped onto a big tree and took out sticky silk. She shuttled between the trees like a ghost. Although the iron-armored blood lizards were good at climbing trees, they didn't know how to swing. She watched Yun Chujio move around on the treetops and quickly pulled away from them. Those iron-armored blood lizards were so angry that they almost died. Was this a human or a demon spider? Why was it still spinning silk? Yun Chujio originally wanted Xiaomogu to sense where the mushroom gathering place was. But she discovered that Zhuang Hong and the others were surrounding and attacking a demon beast not far away. Xiaomogu blinked her eyes and immediately activated the Black Lotus skill. She hopped back to a place not far away from the iron-armored blood lizards. Seeing that she dared to return, the iron-armored blood lizards immediately roared and chased after her. Yun Chujio moved around on the tree and very quickly lured the iron-armored blood lizards to the vicinity of Zhuang Hong and the others. Zhuang Hong and the others were fighting with the demonic beasts. When they discovered the group of lizards was already very close to them. They were immediately scared out of their wits and ran for their lives. Hei Shinjo hummed a little song and jumped toward the place where Xiaomogu had sensed. This guy was a little excited. He was about to open the door of a new world. Xiaomogu reminded her, Master, although I can command some low-level spiritual mushrooms, high-level spiritual mushrooms are not so obedient. Moreover, you have to fight for the thunder and lightning power that they use for cultivation. Therefore, you have to be prepared for a big battle. Yun Chujio nodded. This was also easy to understand. For example, Xiao Hanyo and the others, although their grades were very high, demon beasts with high spiritual power would not buy it. They would even think of ways to eat them to replenish their energy. However, there was no prohibition on using talismans here. She could use a few puppets to clean up those mushrooms. It was a piece of cake. However, when this guy looked at the densely packed mushrooms in the distance, each of which was as tall as 2 adults, his previous confidence was immediately fed to the dogs. Was this a freaking mushroom? This was simply a mushroom tree. Moreover, such a large area was filled with mushroom spirits. Even if she had the puppets' help, she was still not their match. Yun Chujio used her spiritual sense to speak to Xiaomogu. So is there any way for me to absorb the power of lightning without alerting them? Master, the roots of these mushrooms are more than 100 feet deep underground. Even if you use any method, it's impossible for you to not be discovered. If you want to absorb the remaining power of lightning here, either chase these mushrooms away or kill them all. Chapter 42-23. Mushrooms that eat meat. Yun Chujio wanted to cry, but she had no tears. She had killed all these mushroom spirits? Perhaps she would be the one to die. She had thought that things were too simple. She had thought that she could easily absorb the power of lightning. Who would have thought that there would be so many mushrooms here? And they were all so abnormal. However, since she had come, she could not return empty-handed, right? Yangua pluck feathers was her way of doing things. It was absolutely impossible to return empty-handed. Xiaomogu rolled her eyes and asked, Xiaomogu, what do they usually eat? Demon beasts. They could move, but the farther they were from their birthplace, the weaker their spiritual power would be. In addition, the demon beasts were very wary of them, so they probably could not eat their fill. Fortunately, they could still absorb a part of the power of thunder and lightning to replenish themselves, Xiaomogu said. The corner of Yun Chujio's eyes twitched. The mushrooms that ate meat had really turned into spirits. She could actually lure away a few mushrooms and kill them. The problem was that there were too many mushrooms here, and her time was limited. She had to end the battle quickly. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and decided to use her best trick. This guy secretly let out Wu Yun and gave a few instructions, and then Wu Yun floated away. After a moment, Yun Chujio put away the spirit-concealing ring on her hand and swaggered to the vicinity of the mushrooms. Oh my God! Are these mushrooms? How can there be such beautiful and noble mushrooms in the world? Yun Chujio said with a face full of admiration. The mushrooms that were close to her originally wanted to use the mycelium to bring her over to eat, but when they heard her words they stopped their actions and wondered, is this a fool? Seeing that they were not afraid, she actually praised them? That was true. She was a good-for-nothing without spiritual power. Perhaps she did not know how scary they were. It was not bad to tease her. After all, there were too few interesting things in the misty forest. Seeing that the mushrooms did not move, Yun Chujo was slightly relieved. As long as they were willing to listen to her, she did not believe that she could not fool them. The guy continued, "You are all high-level spiritual mushrooms, right? I really envy you guys for being able to cultivate. I'm just a trash who can't cultivate. I was thrown here by my family and left to fend for myself. Fortunately, I can still run fast. Otherwise, I would have been eaten by the demon beasts." When the mushrooms heard Yun Chujia's words, they immediately felt a sense of superiority. They were indeed much stronger than this pitiful worm. In this bewilderment shadow forest, no matter how high level the demon beasts were, they would not dare to provoke them. "Can I discuss with you guys? I don't have 2 tails of meat on me. It's not even enough for you guys to stuff your teeth in. However, although I don't have spiritual power, I can run fast. Therefore, it's the best choice to be the bait. As long as you guys don't kill me, I can lure the demon beasts into your encirclement. Then you guys can easily hunt them, okay?" Yun Chujo said pitifully. The mushrooms felt that it was feasible. Because of their reputation, the demon beasts hid far away, so they couldn't eat their fill. However, if they had this little girl as bait, they would be able to set up an ambush and not worry about not having any meat to eat. Therefore, a large mushroom that was close to Yun Chujo stretched out a mycelium and shook, indicating that it agreed with Yun Chujia's idea. Yun Chujo looked at the mycelium that was as thick as an arm and her heart trembled. Damn, if they really fought, she really wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. Fortunately, she had a brain, so a brain was a good thing. "Since you all agreed, let's go. We'll set up an ambush first, and then I'll go and capture the demon beasts." Chapter 42-24 Mushroom Army LRB Monthly Ticket. Perhaps because they did not trust Yun Chujo very much, only about 1/3 of the mushrooms followed Yun Chujo to set up an ambush. Yun Chujia's eyes flashed. She wanted to let them taste some sweetness first, and then she would naturally send out all of them. These hungry ghosts could not resist the temptation of meat. Yun Chujo deliberately brought the mushrooms further away. The mushrooms quickly burrowed into the ground and waited for Yun Chujo to bring their prey in. They were not afraid that Yun Chujo would secretly slip away because a person without spiritual power would quickly lose his life in this misty forest without their protection. After Yun Chujo walked for a distance, she let the Guai Chow emit its scent. Of course, the scent was very faint, as long as it attracted a few nearby demon beasts. Soon, a few nearby demon beasts were attracted by the scent. Yun Chujo quickly let the Guai Chow stop emitting the scent, and then ran wildly in the direction of the mushroom ambush circle. When those mushrooms saw the few demon beasts following behind Yun Chujo, they were almost going crazy with joy. Finally, they saw meat. They had been hungry for a long time. These damn demon beasts were becoming more and more shrewd and rarely fell for their tricks. They didn't expect that this bait would be so useful. By the time the demon beasts came to their senses, it was already too late. The mycelium of those mushrooms was not only strong, but it could also secrete toxins. Soon, only some hair was left on the ground, and even the bones were absorbed by those mushrooms. They had tasted the sweetness, and the remaining mushrooms would not do it anymore. Therefore, Hei Shinjo took a portion of the mushrooms and set off. After a few rounds, the mushrooms completely lost their vigilance against Yun Chujo. They also realized that Yun Chujo was attracting more and more demonic beasts, and a portion of the mushrooms alone was not enough to capture all the demonic beasts. Thus, they decided to move out in full force. After all, their base had the power of lightning, so the demon beasts did not dare to occupy their territory. Moreover, even if they were occupied, they could easily chase them away. Thus, Yun Chujo led the mushroom army and left the base in a mighty manner. What the mushrooms did not know was that after they left, A small Wu Yun sneakily arrived at their base and began to absorb the power of lightning underground. The lightning energy that the little Wu Yun could contain was limited. Soon it was full. Then it chased after Yun Chujio. On the other side, Yun Chujio brought the mushrooms further and further away. The explanation she gave was that the nearby demonic beasts had almost been eaten by them, so they could only go further away. The mushrooms didn't suspect anything. They wanted to have a big meal, so they followed Hei Shinjo for a long distance. Hei Shinjo saw that the distance was close, so she said with a smile, "You guys wait here. It'll lure more demonic beasts over." The mushrooms did not suspect him. They retreated into the ground and waited for Yun Chujio to lure the demonic beasts over. Sure enough, after a while, the roars of demonic beasts came from afar. The mushrooms were very excited. They could finally have a good meal. Soon, the mushrooms saw Yun Chujio running over with a bunch of demonic beasts. When the demonic beasts entered the circle of the mushrooms, Hei Shinjo secretly sneaked out of the circle. The mushrooms were already used to this. Every time Yun Chujio attracted the demonic beasts, she would wait at the side obediently, so they didn't pay too much attention to it. Moreover, Yun Chujio attracted a lot of demonic beasts this time, and their spiritual power was greatly reduced because they were far away from the base, so the battle situation was very anxious. Yun Chujio's eyes flashed. A group of idiots. The young miss was going to absorb the power of lightning now. You guys have fun. Chapter 42-25 was better for the dumb cubs. Yun Chujio noticed that the mushrooms were all focused on the demonic beasts, so she sneakily moved back until she saw little Wu Yun. Only then did she stop. Little Wu Yun intimately nudged Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio immediately jumped onto little Wu Yun and instructed it to quickly fly towards the mushroom encampments. Although it was forbidden to fly here, it did not hinder little Wu Yun at all. However, in order not to attract the attention of others, Yun Chujio instructed little Wu Yun to shuttle through the forest and did not fly into the air. Little Wu Yun changed its size at will. Yun Chujio set up her spiritual energy shield, so it did not hinder her in the dense forest. Soon, little Wu Yun brought Yun Chujio to the gathering place of those mushrooms. Yun Chujio did not know how to do it. She was not like little Wu Yun, who could instinctively absorb the thunder element in the air. If she cultivated step by step, she reckoned that she would not be able to absorb many of those stupid mushrooms and would come back. Although she could let Wu Yun absorb them and use lightning to strike her, that would cause too much of a commotion and would not work. Fortunately, Xiao Mogu reminded her, "Master, let me out and I will help you." Hearing that, Yun Chujio immediately let Xiao Mogu out. Xiao Mogu's roots instantly sank into the ground. Soon, a part of Xiao Mogu's roots extended out from the ground and entangled Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio instantly felt the power of lightning on the roots. Although there was purple lightning and silver lightning for Hei Shinjo, who was in a thunder wasteland, she didn't care about the lightning. As long as it was heavenly lightning, it was good. She put all the power of lightning on the roots of Xiao Mogu into her dantian. The three foodies in her dantian immediately began to fight to devour it. Yun Chujio did not have the time to bother with them. She quickly absorbed the power of lightning from Xiao Mogu's roots. Xiao Mogu looked at Xiao Mogu, who was trying her best to help her absorb the power of lightning. She thought that Xiao Mogu was like a medium that connected her to the power of lightning underground. If not for Xiao Mogu's help, she really had no way to quickly absorb the power of lightning. From the looks of it, her dumb cuties might look useless for the time being, but they might be of great use someday. She should be gentler when she kicks them in the future. After coming over for a while, Yun Chujio felt that Xiao Mogu's speed of transmitting the power of lightning had slowed down. She thought to herself that it seemed like Xiao Mogu had almost absorbed the power of lightning here. Although this definitely could not be compared to being struck by lightning, this, together with the power of lightning that she had previously stored, was enough for her to break through once. Xiao Mogu suddenly pulled back its roots and said, "Those mushrooms are back. Master, let's go quickly." Yun Chujio did not dare to delay when she heard that. She put away the small mushrooms and jumped onto the Xiao Mogu. As soon as she sat on the Xiao Mogu, she saw the mushrooms stagger back. Yun Chujio attracted a lot of demon beasts for them. Although these mushrooms won in the end and had a good meal, they still paid a heavy price. After the battle ended, they realized that Yun Chujio had disappeared. They thought that Yun Chujio had either been eaten by other demonic beasts or had run away. After all, they had eaten this meal for quite a long time. It didn't matter whether that little girl lived or died. However, what did they see? That little girl was actually sitting on a small dark cloud. This was impossible. How could Wu Yun be driven by someone? It must be a spirit tool similar to Wu Yun. However, they quickly reacted. Something wasn't right. Wasn't this little girl unable to cultivate? How could she use a spirit tool? Chapter 42-26. Do you have a conscience? While those mushrooms were in a daze, Yun Chujio had already urged little Wu Yun to fly away. Although those mushrooms were a little puzzled, they did not chase after her. The main reason was that they could not catch up. However, they were soon dumbfounded. What about their lightning power? Why was there no trace of it? A moment later, the mushrooms angrily waved their mycelium and chased after Yun Chujio. Damn it, even if they used their mycelium, they would know that it must have been done by that stinky girl. What about being bait to help them hunt demon beasts? It turned out that they were trying to abduct their lightning power. Shameless. Shameless. Unfortunately, Yun Chujio had long fled far away on the little Wu Yun. The mushrooms could only swallow this cowardly breath and sadly head to another place where the lightning spiritual power was slightly weaker. Although it would take some time to get used to it, it was still better than not having the power of lightning. What the mushrooms did not know was that not far from them, a little Wu Yun was following them sneakily. After seeing that they had found a place to settle down, it floated away. After hearing the report from the little Wu Yun, Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. They had actually found a place with the power of lightning so quickly? She had heard that a crafty rabbit had 3 burrows, but she had never thought that this group of mushrooms actually had several places to hide. Then the problem came. What if she went to scam them again? This fellow's eyes rolled around. Then he took out a pillow from his storage ring, put on his clothes, and threw it on little Wu Yun. Then he said a few words to little Wu Yun. After the little Wu Yun floated away, the guy said to the dumb cuties in the spirit beast bag, "Hey, isn't what I did a little bad? My conscience hurts a little." But Face immediately said, "Little fairy, do you have a conscience?" Yun Chujio. Damn it, this butt face was getting more and more despicable. As soon as the mushrooms settled down, they saw the smelly girl who had stolen their thunder and lightning powers return with the spirit tool that looked like Wu Yun. The mushrooms were about to explode with anger. This smelly girl actually rushed back? This was simply outrageous. This was a blatant provocation. Go kill her. The mushrooms frantically waved their mycelium to chase after little Wu Yun. If little Wu Yun had flown high or fast, it would have been fine. However, little Wu Yun flew neither high nor low, neither fast nor slow. It could let the mushrooms see hope, but they couldn't catch up. Therefore, the group of mushrooms that were controlled by anger were brought further and further away by Xiao Wu Yun. On the other side, Hei Shinjo relied on Xiao Mogu to shamelessly absorb the power of lightning that the mushrooms had found, but in the end, there was still a bit left for the mushrooms. It was not that this guy had a conscience, but that her dantian could not hold it anymore. Moreover, she did not dare to rashly make a breakthrough here, so she could only bear the pain and leave a bit for the mushrooms. Not only her, even Xiao Hanio and Xiao Mogu had also absorbed it to their limits. The 3 lightning thieves left reluctantly. The miserable mushrooms did not manage to catch up with Xiao Wu Yun in the end. When they returned to their new base, they found that only a small amount of the power of lightning was left, and they almost died from anger. Only then did they realize that the person on Wu Yun had not spoken or moved. Could it be that they had been deceived again? That damned girl was too mean. It was simply impossible to guard against. The mushrooms were so miserable that they wanted to hit the wall, but Hei Shinjo was so beautiful that she was about to burst. This method was even better than being struck by lightning. If she was not careful, she might be struck to death, but this method did not work. Moreover, those stupid mushrooms were very easy to fool. In the future, she did not have to worry about not having the power of lightning. Chapter 42-27, Level 2 of Soulless Spirit. Hei Shinjo was excited, but then she remembered that she had been separated from Chu Feng and the others for 3 days. They must be very anxious. This guy couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. If he had known earlier, he would have asked Chu Feng for a voice transmission talisman. He wouldn't have been unable to contact Chu Feng now. What a careless mistake. Yun Chujio immediately flew to the periphery of the bewilderment shadow forest on the little dark cloud. However, in order to prevent being discovered, after flying for a distance, she put away the little dark cloud and led Buttface to quickly shuttle through the dense forest. The reason why she let Buttface out was that he didn't have any other abilities, but he was very sharp and could help Yun Chujio avoid high-level demon beasts. When Yun Chujio rushed to the agreed location, Chu Feng almost cried when he saw her. The other 3 people also revealed happy smiles when they saw her return safely. Although they were a little selfish, they didn't want to see Yun Chujio lose her life. They had been searching nearby, even taking the risk of approaching the iron-armored blood lizard's nest to search, but they did not find anything. Yun Chujio casually found an excuse to get lost, and Chu Feng and the others did not doubt it. After all, it was indeed easy to get lost in the misty forest. After calming down a little, a disciple said gloatingly, "Junior Sister Yun, you didn't see it. Martial Uncle Zhuang and the others would not know what kind of powerful demonic beast they encountered. They were in a sorry state, and their injuries were not light. They probably won't recover for at least 10 days to half a month. It's really karma." Yun Chujio pretended to be curious and asked a few questions. In fact, she was secretly cursing in her heart. What retribution? This was all thanks to her, alright? It was just a pity that the group of iron-armored blood lizards were really useless. They had only suffered some light injuries. The 5 of them discussed for a while and decided to give up hunting the iron-armored blood lizards. Although training was important, their lives were more important. The group of iron-armored blood lizards were somewhat abnormal, so it was better not to provoke them. The 5 of them left the bewilderment shadow forest and returned to the sect. Only then did Yun Chujio relax. She had thought that the 9 pavilions and the Divine Devil Hall would take action, and that Elder Wan would not stop either. However, it was actually peaceful. It was really strange. Although Yun Chujio felt that it was a little abnormal, she did not care too much. Right now, the thing that this guy wanted to do the most was to return to the courtyard and break through. Yun Chujio returned to her own courtyard and let out the silly boys to be on guard for her. Then she began to break through. Guai Chao and the other 2 gluttons were very full, so they happily helped Yun Chujio wash her dantian with the power of lightning. Even so, it took Yun Chujio a whole day to break through successfully. 2nd level of Spirit Absent Realm? Only 2 levels? Yun Chujio frowned with some dissatisfaction. She still couldn't compare to heavenly lightning. Xiao Mogu reminded her, "Master, this time, you have broken through from spiritual link to spiritual absence. It is a breakthrough that requires a lot of thunder spiritual power. I think it will be better next time." Yun Chujio thought about it and agreed. Every breakthrough at a large level was a shackle. Many people would not succeed even after trying many times. It seemed that it was okay for her to break through 2 levels in one go. With this thought, his brows relaxed. He decided to stabilize his realm and find another opportunity to go to another forest, to harm the mushroom. On this day, while she was cultivating, Hei Shinjo leaned back on the recliner and basked in the sun. The drifters were jumping around in the courtyard. Dog 2 and the other dumb cuties were also released and were having fun in the courtyard. The sound transmission talisman in the storage ring started to vibrate. Yun Chujio saw that it was sent by Xue Wuji. This guy was stunned. Wuji's head had come to the northern continent? Could it be that her fiancé who hated the heavens and the earth had turned into a snake again? Chapter 42-28 Ungrateful wretch. Yun Chujio sent her spiritual sense in and heard Xue Wuji's loud voice. "Little Sister Jiu, I'm outside the Nameless Sword sect right now. Come out, I have something urgent to tell you." Yun Chujo frowned. Something urgent? She pursed her lips. He was probably here to deliver a snake to her again, right? Otherwise, what else could be important? However, she still arrived at the mountain gate very quickly. She secretly gave some spirit stones to the gatekeeping disciples and then said with a smile, "Senior brothers, can you do me a favor? Don't worry. I'm just going to the small forest outside the mountain gate to have a few words with a friend. I'll be back soon." Those disciples didn't dare to offend her, and they were short-handed, so they turned a blind eye and let her out. When Yun Chujo reached the forest, she saw Xue Wuji, who was wearing a red robe, walking around in circles. He was obviously very anxious. Yun Chujia's heart sank. Wasn't he giving her a snake? Did something happen? When Xue Wuji saw Yun Chujo coming over, he frowned and said, "Little sister Jiu, it's bad. This is really bad." Di Biming's facial paralysis had broken another layer of seal. It was fine if his spiritual power was more abnormal, but it was mainly him. Now how should I put it? You know about the ice sculpture, right? He is no different from that ice sculpture. He has sealed the 7 emotions and 6 desires again, right? It's not like he hasn't sealed it before. What's the big deal? Yun Chujo let out a sigh of relief. She thought it was a big deal. Xue Wuji said anxiously, "No, it's not the result of sealing the 7 emotions and 6 desires this time. I think his nature is like this. He's so cold that he doesn't look like a human. I asked him to come and see you. Guess what he said? He said that it's a waste of time to come and see you. When the matter is settled, he'll marry you back and let people serve you well. I heard that he's planning to marry you back as a decoration, so I took the opportunity to come to Atlas Continent to do something. I specially told you that you have to be mentally prepared." Yun Chujo narrowed her eyes. Didn't she seal the 7 emotions and 6 desires? Marry her back as a decoration? When the seal was unsealed previously, it wasn't that it hadn't become cold. It was just that this time it seemed to have lost a trace of humanity. Xue Wuji saw that Yun Chujia's expression did not look too good. He said, "Little sister Jiu, don't be too sad. How about this, you record some sincere words for that facial paralysis. I will help you bring them back. Perhaps when that facial paralysis hears your voice, he will have a conscience and come to see you." Yun Chujo rolled her eyes. "Brother Wuji, what you said makes sense. Wait for me." I will record a few recording stones for you to bring back and play for that ingrate. The corner of Xue Wuji's mouth twitched. Ingrate? Yes, that was too fucking impressive. He was just an ingrate. Back when he was with his brothers, although his face was a little paralyzed, it was still okay. But now? He treated him like a subordinate and ordered him around. If he was not happy, he would be frozen into an ice sculpture. However, he could not beat him, so he could only accept it. It was very frustrating to think about it. Yun Chujo opened the isolation array and fiddled with it for a while. Then, she handed a pile of recording stones to Xue Wuji. "Brother Wuji, I have written the sequence on these recording stones. When you play them in the sequence for that ingrate to hear, remember not to mess up the sequence." Xue Wuji looked at the pile of recording stones that Yun Chujo gave him and his eyes twitched. How many words did little sister Jo record? She could really talk. Chapter 4229 rolled over smoothly. "Little sister Jiu, don't worry. It's actually quite good that the facial paralysis has become like this. At least he won't be fooling around. Big brother will keep an eye on him for you. I guarantee that he will keep his body as pure as jade." Xue Wuji comforted her. The corners of Yun Chujia's mouth curled up. "Big brother Wuji, don't worry. He won't escape from my palm. Even if he turns into a rock, he will roll over smoothly for me." Xue Wuji listened to Yun Chujia's words and was skeptical. Was little sister Jo thinking too optimistically? Just these recording stones could make that expressionless man come over to see her? Just as he was in a daze, Yun Chujo said, "Brother Wuji, take these delicious food back and eat with the little lunatic. I saved these for you." Xue Wuji saw the big and small packages that Yun Chujo turned over. He immediately grinned. "Little sister Jo, then I won't stand on ceremony with you. You don't know, but that facial paralysis doesn't let us eat at all. We can only swallow fasting pills. Damn it, I'm dying of craving. Yoon Chujio pursed her lips. The gigolo from before had sealed his 7 emotions and 6 desires, and he was also doing the same thing. He said that eating was not good for cultivation and other bullshit. He was simply insane. Yoon Chujio gave Shue Wuji more than 100 6-star dark spirit stones. Shue Wuji had heard of 6-star dark spirit stones. It was said that they were very rare. He was surprised that Yoon Chujio had so many. Yoon Chujio narrowed her eyes and said, "Brother Wuji, give one of these 6-star dark spirit stones to the gigolo. You can split the rest with the little lunatic." Shue Wuji thought he had heard wrong and only gave one to the facial paralysis man. However, he thought that little sister Jo was probably angry with the facial paralysis man. This was understandable, so he did not ask further. As Shue Wuji still had things to do, he chatted with Yoon Chujio for a while and left in a hurry. Before he left, Yoon Chujio said, "Right, give him a dark spirit stone first when you go back, and then play the recording stone." Although Shue Wuji was a little puzzled, seeing that Yoon Chujio did not intend to explain, he tactfully did not ask further. Shue Wuji finished the things that Di Biming had arranged and left Atlas Continent in a hurry. Shue Wuji sped all the way and finally arrived at the temporary place where the 3 of them stayed. And Feng looked at Shue Wuji's return as if he had seen his savior. When young Master Wuji was around, because this fellow always went to flirt with others, he had to endure most of the cold air from the honored master. However, as soon as young Master Wuji left, he was miserable. His Majesty did not need to say anything and did not need to do anything. As long as he took a glance at him, he felt a chill all over his body. He was almost frozen. Shue Wuji was a big-hearted fellow. Although he was also afraid of Di Biming, he was much braver than Enfeng. He smiled wickedly and asked, "Little madman, where's that noodles? Where's that Majesty? I brought him many good things." Enfeng was almost scared to death by this guy. If the Exalted One heard him call him facial paralysis, he would be frozen into an ice sculpture again. Enfeng pointed at the pavilion in the distance while trembling. The Exalted One is cultivating in the pavilion. Shue Wuji pursed his lips. The spiritual energy in the pavilion was the densest, and the lotus pond was not far away. The scenery was also good, so he knew how to find a place. "Little madman, let's go." Little sister Jo recorded the recording stone for him. She said that he would go find her after listening to it. "Let's go and watch the show," Shue Wuji said with an expression of wanting to watch a good show. I'd better not go." Although Enfeng said so, he still followed behind Shue Wuji. The reason was simple. He felt that the Venerable One did not have a trace of smoke and fire. If Miss Jo recorded it, would the Venerable One go find her immediately? How could this be possible? Chapter 42:30 did not know what to say. The 2 of them soon arrived at the pavilion. Di Biming asked indifferently, "Has everything been settled?" Shue Wuji subconsciously straightened his body. He put away his usual casual manner and said, "It's done. It's almost as you guessed. The 9 pavilions is just a pretense. I guess there will be the next step soon." Di Biming nodded slightly, and there was a hint of killing intent in his eyes. "Go and investigate every once in a while. If there's any movement, report to me immediately." Shue Wuji saw that he was not interested in continuing the conversation, and he remembered Yoon Chujio's instructions. He took out a 6-star dark spirit stone and handed it to him. "Little sister Jo asked me to bring this to you. Don't misunderstand. We just happened to meet. I'm not lazy." Di Biming took the 6-star dark spirit stone and glanced at it before putting it into his storage ring. He did not say a word. Shue Wuji gritted his teeth and risked being frozen into an ice sculpture. "Little sister Jo also asked me to bring you a recording stone. Shall I play it for you?" Shue Wuji was afraid that Di Biming would refuse. He immediately took out the recording stone that Yoon Chujio had marked as number 1. After injecting his spiritual power into it, Yoon Chujio's sweet, goosebumps-inducing voice came from within. My dearest, most beloved Prince Charming, did you miss me? Do you still remember the little cutie from the nameless sword sect? Shwewuji's feet staggered. Was little sister Jo having a stroke? Could it be that she wanted to use sweet words to move Biming, this expressionless man? And Feng's mouth was also wide open. It had been a long time since they last met, so how did Miss Jo's style become like this? Biming frowned. With a wave of his hand, the sound recording stone in Shwewuji's hand turned into fine powder. He said coldly, I've said it before. I won't consider the love between a son and a daughter for the time being. The important matter is more important. I won't do it again. Shwewuji was so angry that he gritted his teeth. No wonder little sister Jo called him an ingrate. He was really an ingrate. However, he remembered that Yun Chujo gave him a bunch of sound recording stones, so he secretly opened the second sound recording stone. Yun Chujia's careless voice came from inside. TSK. I guess that piece just now was destroyed by someone, right? If you have the ability, you can also destroy this piece. Ingrate. And Feng swallowed his saliva and silently stepped back. Although Miss Jo had guessed that the Venerable One had destroyed the recording stone just now, she actually dared to call the Venerable One an ingrate. The consequences were unimaginable. Shwewuji also did not expect that Yun Chujia's second recording stone would be so popular. He felt that he would have to experience the 3 feet of ice again. Biming was stunned for a moment. Then he waved his hand, and the recording stone in Shwewuji's hand turned into powder again. Shwewuji was afraid that after being frozen into an ice sculpture, the recording stone in his hand would not be able to play in time. Therefore, before Biming could speak, he quickly activated the third recording stone. Yun Chujia's voice that was as light as the wind came from it. I guess the second recording stone has also turned into powder, right? Why? Do you think that ingrates are unpleasant to hear? Actually, calling you an ingrate is an insult to a wolf. Even a wolf has more conscience than you. I have something important to tell you, and that is, Shwewuji pricked up his ears to listen, but there were only rustling sounds behind him. There was no voice at all. He shook it a few times, but he still could not hear it clearly. Could it be that the recording stone was broken? However, his heart moved. Could it be that little sister Jo was doing it on purpose? Was it to arouse the curiosity of that facial paralysis person? Little sister Jo was really smart. However, that facial paralysis person might not be affected. Biming saw that Shwewuji had been fiddling with the recording stone for a long time without making any movements. He raised his hand and the recording stone turned into fine powder. He said indifferently, "You don't know what you're talking about." Chapter 4231, Ex-fiancé. Seeing this, Shwewuji thought to himself, I told you. This facial paralysis is now an ice sculpture. Little sister Jo might have miscalculated. However, he remembered that Yun Chujo had given him a bunch of recording stones. Since it was already like this, he would play them one by one. Therefore, he opened the fourth recording stone. Yun Chujia's giggling voice came from it. Are you curious about something important that big sister wants to tell you? Brother Wuji gave you that 6-star dark spirit stone, right? It's your legal gain. You can keep it in peace. Biming frowned even more. Legal gain? What legal gain? Shwewuji saw that Biming did not destroy the recording stone in his hand immediately, so he quickly activated the fifth recording stone. You must be curious about what legal gain is, right? It's the reward for sleeping with you. Although your time is short and your skills are bad, and you haven't been able to make me pregnant for so many years, but seeing that you're still pretty passable, it'll give you some more money to break up with you. You ingrate, get far away from me. Don't come looking for me. I've already found a suitable candidate. Goodbye, ex-fiancé. Bang! Bang! Shwewuji and Enfeng both sat on the ground paralyzed. They seemed to have heard something incredible. Would they be killed to keep their mouths shut? Shwewuji saw that Biming's head was about to emit white smoke, so he quickly activated the sixth recording stone. He did not expect the words inside to be exactly the same as the fifth recording stone. when he placed it in the short time and poor techniques section. The two recording stones instantly turned into dust. As for Shuewuji and Enfeng, they fell into the lotus pond like kites with broken strings. Enfeng was miserable. He said that he wouldn't come, but he insisted on letting him come. It seemed that young Master Wuji didn't insist on bringing him here. He was the one who wanted to be tortured. Shuewuji hid under a lotus leaf and decided to settle down here temporarily. Enfeng and he both thought that Yun Chuzhou and Di Baiming had sex a long time ago. They were wondering why the little bun was never born. But it turned out that the facial paralysis was not good enough. TSK, God was indeed fair. Although the facial paralysis looked like a dog and had high spiritual power, he was not good in that aspect. Poor little sister Jiao. Just as he was thinking, he heard the sound of something shattering. He stole a glance and saw that the original pavilion had become a pile of debris. However, what about the facial paralysis? Shuewuji used his courage to look around, but he did not see the shadow of that facial paralysis. He thought to himself, oh no, could that facial paralysis have really gone to little sister Jiao? Although little sister Jiao's move was quite effective, how was he going to deal with the aftermath? Would that facial paralysis kill him just because little sister Jiao exposed his weakness? However, he had no way to send a message to little sister Jiao now. He could only hope that little sister Jiao would do well for herself. A certain someone who was suspected of being unable arrived at Towering Sky Continent at an unprecedented speed, and then came to the nameless sword sect. Although he was cold-hearted and indifferent, a man wouldn't tolerate being labeled as unable. Moreover, he had not even slept with her, so how could he be no? This was outrageous. Also, what did he mean by ex-fiancé? Although he was prepared to put aside the relationship between men and women for the time being and marry her after the future was settled, this did not mean that she could betray him and find another man. He wanted to see which dog would dare to covet his woman. Could it be that scum Lan Luochen? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.